Good morning. I'd like to call to order the Board of Selectmen Special Workshop Meeting. It is Thursday, January 19th, 2017. It is now 8:32. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to ask Selectman Tracy to lead us, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Carl. Good morning. Just as a matter of introduction, I'd like again welcome the members of the Board of Finance. Thank you. As always, thank you for your participation. And this is the second day of presentations by our town departments. So we'll start off presentations with the Board of Assessment Appeals. Do I see them here?
Oh, wait. Did I give bad directions, Tracy?
Okay, if not, okay, we'll move on. No budget for the Board of Assessment Appeals.
That's an easy cut.
That's the way we can cut this budget real quick, all right?
Not
All right.
that big.
Should we take a look at it?
What's that?
Should we take a look at it?
It's not that big.
No, it's not that big, all right,
There's really only one question.
yeah.
I mean, it appears that the commission secretary, that basically doubled, and I'm assuming it's just as a result of the reval year?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, all right. All right, so we'll move on then. These are all really small budgets, so we can zip right through them unless there are questions. Zoning Board of Appeals, anybody have anything on that? All right, then I see a representative from the Historic District here, anybody? Yes, okay, come on in, please. There might be a problem you being here, but now we gotta look at your budget.
Not much, I'll tell you.
Okay. Could we have your name, please? I'm sorry.
My name is Ann Street. I'm the current chairman of the Historic District Commission.
Like to go through?
Oh, okay.
It's all yours.
Our budget is basically secretarial and printing. I've increased the secretarial component by $200 this year, up to $2,800, based on a slight increase in compensation for the secretary. I added $50 more to the printing budget, which covers our public notices. Under education and training, we have traditionally had $100 in there, and we use that to belong to professional organizations, the National Association of Historic Districts and the Connecticut Trust. And then under miscellaneous expenses, that fund is used to occasionally give awards to projects that we think are particularly of merit. Sometimes we have run conferences for the community. We are considering very strongly a program on lighting, because there's a couple of big projects that we've had where we don't think we got the lighting quite right. And there have been a lot of changes in the kinds of lamps and things that are available for lighting public spaces. We think that might be an interesting discussion to have for the community. So that would be what we would use those expenses for. Our requested budget last year was $3,900. This year we're requesting $42,000. On the income side, our only income is from the $50 that we get for application fees from each project. We have run somewhere between 27, 28, and maybe 32 applications a year. Some of those are very quick. Fences, gas meters, you put in a really quick, short public notice, you have a hearing, you write a letter, boom, it's done. Some of our applications, though, probably a third of them, require ongoing discussions, which means there's more secretarial time. There may not be another public notice, but even those ones that are on our agenda continuously for a year or a year and a half, some of the big house renovations, 66 High Street has been a recurring issue on our agenda one way or another for the last year. We still only get $50 for that, so that our income doesn't really reflect the expense of doing the applications.
So what you're saying, the $50 might not cover the cost of the application? I mean,
Well-
like posting in the newspaper, how much that? It's gotta be $25 now.
Well, we do a group notice, yes, but if it's like gas meter at 27 High Street, you know, fence here, fence there, it's pretty short notice. But if you get something where they're gonna take something down, they're gonna replace windows, you know, the legal notices can get to be very long. We had a preliminary discussion about whether, you know, raising fees was appropriate. And I would certainly be willing to revisit that again, but the issue we have is that this is a fee for an additional overlay of service that somebody who wants to put up a fence in North Guilford doesn't have to go through. And so it was our feeling that raising our fees might result in more people not coming in, which would be counterproductive, because then we have time with the enforcement agent to shut the job down and to start again. A fee-based, as you do with construction, probably isn't going to work either. And some of our projects are so simple, like a gas meter. Some of our projects are so big, like a multi-million-dollar renovation. How do you, you know, I think that the time that it would take to administer that kind of a fee structure for us probably isn't worth it.
Okay.
Joe?
Yep.
Can I chime in for a second?
Sure.
I'm Mitch Gold, Director of Human Resources. I spoke to John Cunningham.
Yep.
Okay. So, just as a little disconnect here, what Anna's proposed was $2,800, I think, for the secretary. When I spoke to John, the problem is we try to make all the secretaries for all the clerks for all the boards and commissions come out to an even number of hours, based on hours, and the $17 an hour. When I spoke to John, we did increase the secretary's position, I think it was by 10 hours or so, so it came out to $27.20 is what's before
Oh,
the board.
okay.
Just so you know, and so there might be a disconnect
Okay.
in what she was saying, what's in your packets.
It's difficult to know how much secretarial expense we're going to have in any given year. Like I said, we could have a meeting where we have 5 gas meters, takes us an hour and a half, boom, we're done. We could have longer discussions. Last night, for example, we had no active applications on the table, so essentially there was no revenue for last night. But we had 2 people come in with preliminary discussions about projects, and we were there until 9 o'clock. We encourage that. I think that's our role, is to talk to people before they get, you know, halfway down the wrong road. But still, there's secretarial time involved in, you know, in taking the minutes for the meeting and following that up and making sure that it's filed, for which there's no, and not that our revenue really matches our expenses, but that's an example of how it's difficult to budget exactly what our secretarial is going to be.
Right, so we looked at it, and we did make an
Yeah.
increase, so hopefully it'll cover you.
Okay, thanks.
Do you know roughly how many homes there are in the historic district? The 2 historic?
I think there's probably about 150 or 60. And I increased our anticipated number of applications this year from 27 to 32. Based on looking around the district, there are 2 or 3 relatively large houses that are in pretty bad shape that have for sale signs in front of them. And if any 1 or maybe 2 of those come up and end up being sold, those will be long involved projects for us in approving what's going to be done, in working with the contractors and the owners. And so those will be projects that will be on our agenda for months at a time.
Do you know what your actual expenditure is to date in the miscellaneous line?
I don't know that we have gotten an update that accurately.
957.
Yeah, it's also difficult because we're not really
That's what's
consistent.
available.
I'm sorry, that's available, you're right.
$42 have been spent in miscellaneous line.
Wrong column.
Throughout the year, because right now people are thinking about, well, what do I need to do next spring? So March, April, May are big months for us of people coming in with projects that they've been doing. Not so much in October, November, December. We're doing sort of cleanup on stuff that's been going on. There was a lot of gas meters last fall and stuff, but the big construction projects hit right at the end of our year, so that we cruise into this time of the year with quite a bit of extra money of looking like it's available in our budget. And sometimes we end up that way, sometimes we don't. I mean, I've been involved with the historic district now for, 20 some odd years, and there have been years when we have gotten 2 months out from the end of the year and we have just expended everything. And we're still legally obligated to hold those meetings, pay those secretaries, review those applications. We can't just say, sorry guys, we're out of money, we'll see you in a couple months.
The
So-
question on the fees is that a flat $50?
Yeah, it's a flat $50.
So the fee would be the same
Yes.
if I were to come to you in regard to a gas meter
Yep.
versus a rehab of my entire building.
Yes, well, the only time we would get more on a project like 66 High Street is if they came in with the project for the main building and then later on decided to add garages or fences. We might get an extra fee for that, but yes, basically it is the same.
Has the commission ever contemplated doing a sliding scale based on the project?
Well, yes. We did discuss that last night. I think it's difficult to figure out exactly how to do that. I mean, it's pretty clear that something like a sign or a fence or a gas meter is a $50 fee.
Yeah.
And it's pretty clear to understand that a project like 66 High Street, not to keep coming back to that, but that's the biggest one we've had recently, $50 is not going to make or break that project. But where do you go with the guy who's putting in a garden shed? Is that a big project? Much bigger than a gas meter, but not as big as 66 High Street.
Dollars,
And-
that's how zoning.
Well, but who's going to administer that? You know, we don't really have the staff to look at that side
Part
of
of
the
the permitting
application.
process.
Yeah, I think, like Selectman Harrod had just mentioned, probably a guide would be to look at the zoning phase.
A lot of our
Yeah.
projects don't either have zoning applications attached to them or even building permits. And so you get into that.
Everything you've listed just now has got a permit. Signage has got permit.
Signage has got permits, yep.
Renovations got permit, any of those that would have permits.
I think it's probably not the discussion to have here, but if the commission wants to embark upon looking at fees based on the project, it might be a worthwhile discussion to have with the P&Z staff.
There
To
could
Ann's
be,
point, there aren't that many more projects. It's-
Well,
yeah.
you never know what's coming down the road.
Well, but they do, because they have a very defined district,
Yeah.
and there's only X numbers of
But
potential.
she did mention the fact that there are homes that
Potential.
are for sale that will
that
want to renovate.
could be
Yeah.
big
And you
projects.
could count them
Right.
though. I
But
mean.
then, but the vast majority of our projects are small.
Okay.
And so for the one or two big projects, I don't know whether it makes sense to try and implement a really complicated fee structure.
Well, I don't think implementing a complicated fee structure makes sense, but I think maybe if you had something on record so that if another 66 High Street came up, you would have the ability to do that, because you can't change your fee after a project comes in.
Right.
I'm just suggesting, take a look at it, if you had something on the books, so that if you had an extraordinary project with extraordinary expenses, you had the ability to cover your expenses. I'm not saying
Maybe-
make it profitable or run the whole
Maybe a
thing.
fee structure that said if the calculations on the building permit exceed a certain dollar amount, it would tip to a higher fee.
I got a little philosophical difference. This is an overlay district within the town, and I find it odd that I'm on this side, and my good Republican friends are on the other side of talking about fees, and I'm saying, why are we burdening a very select group of homeowners in this community with additional fees?
I think that was
Understood. But, we continue to talk about the burden to our taxpayers, and this
Right.
is a soft burden that's not applicable to everyone in the community. Now, I could maybe suggest, if it is an extensive project, the fee structure is related to the number of hours that your secretary spends on it, and they're responsible for the recording expense, maybe. But in terms of, developing a large fee structure based on the size of the project, I've got some concerns about that, and
Yeah, but if you're in the historic district, and you can correct me, because you've been on P&Z, and thank God, I've never been on that one, is that If you go through the historic district, you don't have to go through design review in P and Z. Am I correct? You skip a step
I
in
don't
P
know
and
which
Z.
one overrides the other.
Yeah.
There is a
Okay,
correlation.
so,
But is there a fee to go to design review?
well, you go through planning and zoning, yeah. So you are skipping a step.
But not a fee, not necessarily
I'm
a
not,
fee.
not sure of that,
Right.
but if the fee structure
Yeah.
changes, but I understand your point.
Yeah.
But are there any more questions for historic district? We'd like to move along here.
Yeah, the only observation is historically, they haven't come anywhere near spending the budget, so.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Is
a
it
best-
is it a moot point?
It's a worst
Yeah.
case, and they only
Right.
do half of it.
Well,
The-
and
the
to
other
say that they
counter-
put a lot of work into it, that's why
Right.
we're bringing this issue
The other
up.
counter to Matt's is if you read the newspapers, you know, people advertise in the historic district and it adds value. So adding another $50 fee or something here or there, to be in the historic district and go through the process presumably adds value. At least that's what the real estate agents advertise.
Yeah, believe everything you read. Just a question operationally, the fees go to general fund, I don't see it's not
Correct,
an
the relations
offset
to the general
against,
fund. It's not
is there a consideration maybe to offset against expenses, the fees? We do it with some other departments.
Yeah, we could. I mean, right now they go to general fund.
General fund.
Yeah. Okay, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ann.
Next on the agenda is Human Services. It's next half.
That works. Did you do that on purpose?
I didn't set this up. They did. They just tell me what to do.
Good morning. I'm
Good
Terry
morning,
Bergen,
Terry.
the
Yep.
Chair of the Council.
Good morning, I'm Pam Ellman, I'm a member of the council.
Good morning.
One
Welcome.
back here.
Okay, I'll begin. We'd like to let you know that we work very hard at determining which agencies come to us that we would propose funding for. All the agencies that we have put in our proposed budget assist Guilford residents. That is the most important thing for you to understand. All these agencies serve Guilford residents. The types of agencies that we are proposed funding for assist with drug and alcohol rehabilitation, child and adult psychiatric issues, education, health and nutrition, and other various important concerns.
The council is voluntary and we don't have an expense budget.
Question I have, this is the first year that you don't have an appropriation recommended for the Orchard House. And we've always been big supporters of that, and I'm curious why you haven't.
They did not apply this year.
They didn't apply,
That's
okay.
correct, yeah.
That makes perfect sense. Okay. Have you reached out to them, or you?
No, we try to be, go ahead.
We've talked about that.
Yeah.
Because they have been such a consistent applicant, because we all really, we know what the work they do and we all appreciate it a lot. But we thought that reaching out to one specific agency over another agency might smack a little of favoritism, and we
Okay.
want to be completely transparent with how we propose that these town funds be spent, and so that's why we decided not to reach out to them.
Okay. Okay.
Do you think, I don't know if there's changes going on at the Orchard House or whatever, but do you think that they might realize their mistake and come back? Is that
Sorry,
potential
I
exist?
don't know. It's possible. But they wouldn't come back now. They'd have to wait till next year.
Yeah, I guess that's my question. And once you miss the opportunity, they've missed the opportunity.
Yes.
You have a hard date, application, a sunset
Yes.
date?
Yes.
I don't know what their budget is, but you know, like you said, it'd be interesting. Yeah, I don't know if it's a change in their management or what, but it's what it is, I guess.
From a policy procedure, you're pretty hard fast on them missing application dates, but I think at our meeting the other night, or last month, we had a discussion about the fact that Community Health Center in the current operating budget is $1,000 under budget or overexpended because they missed the filing period to collect the money last year.
Well, that turned out, I think that was more of an internal town.
Townside issue?
It went into the spam filter. So it was a mistake, but, so it wasn't something
It
we
wasn't
gave
an
them.
error on their side,
do
that they
work.
didn't apply for it?
That's correct.
Can you distinguish between these two BH care lines?
Sure. There's the BH Care, parentheses, centers, umbrellas for Umbrella Center for Domestic Violence. That specifically treats counsels domestic violence victims. Then there's the general BH Care line, which is a mental health facility and counsels, treats, and follows adults with mental health issues.
And I'd add that BH Care follows the seriously mentally ill. Our group, we really need to have tracked. It's not, marriage counseling.
So it can't be combined.
Well,
They seem to run separately.
they run separate
Yes.
budgets.
Probably has to do with the grant structure.
And they have applied separately then?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. Do you have any further questions? Jeff?
Guilford Food Bank, friendly visit, all part of the interfaith ministry. Would it make sense, is there a reason they're broken out separately, or is it one donation to the interfaith ministries?
Again, I think.
It's just, I would say this is just the way it's always been done, and it is something we can consider presenting for next year. They're just different, they were all together, they come in together, but they represent these 4 different areas, and we've always listened to each case separately. And actually, we discounted one of them, I believe, this year, and not the rest of them. So it sort of directs the funds, but it's not something we must stick to.
Right. They do track it separately as well.
With
That's
separate
possible,
budgets.
yes.
I think the key is the direction of the funds, so that you know where your funds are going, to what part of the ministries.
Right.
Great, thank you.
Any further questions for Human Services? Comments? Okay.
Thank you for the.
Thank you all,
for your support.
appreciate it. Okay. Hey, next up is Youth and Family Services. Lynn Landry, Director. Good morning, Lynn.
Good morning.
Floor is all yours.
All right. Budget is pretty much the same as last year. I haven't added anything. Looked at everything carefully to see where we could reduce. And so we have a reduction of 0.6% from last year. Of course, the salaries are static, so it's a kind of a fake percentage right now.
The first to bring that to our attention.
Right. Well, I'm nothing but honest. As you know, the GEA contract is still out, and the GSA contract will be up June 30th. So we'll be negotiating that soon. Utilities are up a little bit, and as you know, those always fluctuate. I did add a little bit in building maintenance because of the age of the building. It will be actually 10 years next month that the building was renovated. So we're starting to see some wear and tear. Facilities has done an excellent job of keeping it up. We just painted everywhere, mostly everywhere. But the furnace is starting to show wear and tear, and some of the blinds now seem to break, and those are expensive. So I added a little bit to take care of that. And I think that's about it. Everything else is pretty static. Our revenue, I'm keeping the same as it's been for the past year, 106,721. So the net cost to the town is not $490, but about $383,000. I'm keeping revenue the same because we will meet it this year, but it's going to be tight. it's a trend, you know, we don't have as many encounters this year as we've had in the previous years, and the only thing that I can think of is that more people have insurance, and so there's a greater variety of where they can go and who will accept insurance for mental health services. What's going to happen after tomorrow, I don't know. It makes me nervous on many fronts. You know, if people lose their insurance, then we get more kids on Husky, which is a good payer. But if Medicaid gets affected, then we're affected on that front as well. So I'm just going to keep my fingers crossed. Any questions on?
Yeah, there was one. You kept payroll. I know is static, except we have a slight reduction in it in payroll.
For this current year?
Yeah.
For the first time in 7-8 years, we've had turnover, so our part-time clinician left in the fall, and we didn't replace her right away, we waited, and our full-time clinician left around Thanksgiving. And so we didn't replace her until January 2nd, as a matter of fact, to try to save a little bit of money, and she had to give a longer notice where she was.
I know that, but your request is down.
Your request is down.
That's what I'm looking at.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
misunderstood.
that was my question.
Yeah, I misunderstood, well,
Yeah.
it is linked in some way.
Yeah.
The new clinician is at a lower salary.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
What is the actual, we don't know actual salary.
Oh,
Sure.
Yeah, we do.
Next page.
So, I think,
You're running over budget or behind budget?
Oh, no, we're definitely on budget below, because
Yeah.
as Lynn mentioned, that there was a gap there. And the new clinician coming in, who's now been hired, has come in at a lower rate per the scale on the GEA contract than the previous person who had been here about 8 years.
Right. And I don't think there's been a year yet that I've been here that we haven't given some money back at the end of the fiscal year, so.
Correct.
We always try very hard to do that.
Lynn, have you discussed with Steve at all converting to gas? And I don't know if it runs in front of you, it certainly runs behind you.
Yeah, it's on his list.
Is that an option?
Yes, it's on his
That'll
list.
save someone
Yeah.
utilities presumably.
In fact, it's in his capital budget.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Okay, any questions for the Director of Youth and Family Services? Lynn, thank you very much.
Hey, you're welcome.
Please behave yourself.
I'll try, it's hard.
All right.
If not, there are people that work for her that can take care of that.
No, I think Lynn can take care of all of them.
No, they're certainly not scared of me.
All right, next up, Social Services. I see Tammy here? Yeah, thank you. Everybody seems to want to hide in that corner.
Yeah.
Morning, Tammy.
I've learned these years. Morning.
Morning.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good.
Floor is yours.
It's to me. Well, the only real change is I pretty much tried to stay at last year's budget again, sans the salaries increases. The only increase really is in the utilities, and that was all projected by the finance department. And then I had put in, it's under overtime, I know that that's not the right spot for it, but our part-time coordinator, due to the new labor laws, rules, had to go from a from an exempt position down to a non-exempt position. And during the course of the fall to winter is usually our very, very busy time. And a lot of times we don't, if someone's in the office at 4:30, we don't close the doors on them and ask them to come back. So, and during that busy time, it's hard to find the comp time to make it to make up for the time that they've gone over. So it's a small amount, but it's certainly helpful at that time of year.
Where did you account for that?
I put it in the overtime budget. I don't know if you took it out.
Yeah, it's in her backup. It has not been put into the budget because my instructions were not to add any overtime for GEA that had not already been there before. So it's not in the budget you're seeing, but it is in her backup to explain to you why she feels it should be added to the salary situation.
Thank you.
Okay. And you find the time.
If you can find the time, and usually it's well, you know, you want to take it in the same week or the same, you know, within the next week. That's.
Well, that's a management call.
Well, it's both management and the employee
Yeah.
to agree, but
Yeah.
when we did make this change from exempt to non-exempt, it was explained that the comp time is available, but Tammy has chosen to come forward with a request for overtime that you need to decide whether you want to add into the budget or not, based on her request.
So that's not in this number. That's
It's
a,
not.
that's
Not
a management choice.
Right.
But it's in reserve for personnel.
No, it's
No.
not. No, it's not.
It's not in.
It's not.
It's coming to you as a request
Coming to you
to
as an
add.
additional request to
It's
add.
coming to the Board of Selectmen as a
Right.
request.
Correctly.
What did you receive?
Actually, I want to stay on that thread.
Sure.
Where were there any expenses associated, or projected expenses associated with that for 2017 budget? None?
None.
None. Matt, what,
That's because,
It's a change.
in a nutshell, there was a Labor Department of Labor change about the overtime rules and who's exempt and who isn't. After extensive discussion with our labor attorney, we went and approached 9 individuals and had to make changes to their structure and put them on as non-exempt.
Right.
I think most, if not all, have been able to comply with that. Tammy's had an exception that she wants to bring to your attention, which she's done this morning. If you follow the news, there was a Texas court that overturned that, but all
Suspended it.
Suspended it. Actually, you're actually right, suspended it. Did not overturn it, has suspended it, and therefore all municipalities have been advised by their council and by publications not to go back, just to leave it for right now until we see what happens in new administration and if the court does hear it again. So we're kind of in a little bit of limbo, but we've made the change, and I don't see us going back for most, if not all, of those positions at this point anyway.
Okay.
And when it came to Finance Department, I made the decision to leave it out of the budget, and it's up to the Board of Selectmen if they want to add it to the budget.
Got it.
Could you tell us could you explain a bit about your revenue sources?
Yeah, up until a few years back, we had absolutely no revenue. Right now, for every Operation Fuel application that we do, we receive a reimbursement, an administrative reimbursement. And we also receive an administrative reimbursement from the Eversource for any below budget worksheets that we do for them, and any, which is a financial aid application to reduce their electric bill. Operation Fuel is an application to provide up to $500 worth of either oil or electric service payment. So those were our administrative reimbursement fees that we get back. As of late, we seem to be having, I have 2 right now, notary publics in the office. So what I was finding was we did it because we have so many forms that people have to have notarized. It just made it easier. And then some of our clients come back with other forms for other programs that we notarize for them without the $5 fee. But then we've had other people that just keep coming back in and wanting us to notarize forms. So we've decided now that if it doesn't have anything to do with our programs and the income, it's more of a personal matter for somebody. that we do charge the $5, and we've been sending it in to the, before people would just give us donations so that we'd put to the gift fund that we use. You know, if they used it, either Michelle or Danielle as, you know, but now we're just saying the $5 fee, if it has anything to do with, you know, personal business, then we just give it to.
Do we need to create another,
Yeah.
line, another
Just for-
account for the fees as opposed to the reimbursements? Because the budget has fuel assistance as a revenue source for social services.
We could certainly do that.
We should probably delineate the fees versus what we get from
Yeah.
Eversource.
And our biggest program is the Energy Assistance Program, who offers us no reimbursement fees. Takes up a lot of time, but through the community renewal team.
So we'll just process it essentially.
Okay. Any other questions with social services?
Our caseloads.
That was gonna cross the-
Yeah, our caseloads really haven't gone down significantly. It's my belief that we're gonna end up, this is gonna be the new normal, simply because of the setbacks with the recession that a lot of people had felt. And we have an aging population here in Guilford, and we service a lot of seniors with a lot of the programs, and just with just sitting down with them to help fill out paperwork for the Medicaid program, the Medicare program. They're helping them with even applying for Social Security, the disability. Their resources are low. Aside from these programs, we have the townhouse circuit breaker program, which is the sister or brother program of the rent rebate program. And they have 600 applicants for that program. Those are homeowners, single people living below $35,000 a year, and couples living below $42,000 a year.
That's the power.
So you're pretty constant where you
Yeah.
are now. I mean, we don't see any huge increases, thank God.
No,
Okay.
I don't see any huge increases,
Yeah.
barring what our new government, federal government decides to change or
Mhm.
alter. I do expect, if there are changes to the Affordable Care Act, that we will be seeing an influx of people coming in just wanting to know what to do. The Medicare Savings Program for seniors, it was expanded under the Affordable Care Act back in 2011. It was inclusive of a lot more Medicare recipients. And if they pull back on those, some of those plans and incomes, there's going to be a lot of people that will not have the 20% coverage, and will be looking for. We are also at our office certified choices counselors, which means we don't go actively looking to counsel people on their insurance programs, but we have the knowledge to do so. So a lot of people who had given up their Medicare, their Medigap policies, and their HMOs in lieu of the MSP programs will be scammering for programs.
So
medical.
thank you for this handout.
Oh, sure.
Very helpful. So the last page appears to be the programs that you administer?
Those are just a couple.
Okay.
Those are 5 of probably 10 programs. I couldn't really go in and put them all in here. But yeah, the reason that I picked these is, if you look, the energy assistance really goes families to seniors, individuals to seniors. Rent rebate, it's those who are disabled at 65 and over. And again, that's the brother program of the program that's in the assessor's office.
Yeah.
they see them for that program, but we see them for all the other issues they may have. And we work pretty closely with them as far as they do a lot of referring over to us. Seniors that will come in, they'll say, gee, have you been over to social services? There are programs that may be beneficial to you. And in the same respect, we send people over to the assessor's office for the circuit breaker program.
I mean, if there were actually 5 other, if that's the universe of what you administer, 5 other programs, I'd be interested to see those 5 other programs
Sure.
and similar
Yeah,
information.
at
It'd be really
least.
very helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the Operation Fuel in here. I don't have the below budget worksheets. I don't have the people that we put on the New Start programs. So there are programs that we do work on. I'll be glad to.
That'd be awesome.
Sure. But just this one, the Back to School program and the Warm the Children, you see there's a difference in, and I did this basically to show you trends, but the Back to School, we take school age to 18, 19. Those are in seniors in high school. The Warm the Children, that's 0 to high school. So in the same year, we went from, you know, maybe I'm looking here, 85, 82 to 120 when we added all the 0 to 3-year-olds that were, you know, with families. So I'm just.
Got it. Okay, awesome.
Okay. All right, Tammy, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Sure.
Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe or Mitch, just before you, are there going to be other departments that are going to have this overtime issue that the selectmen are going to have to look at? Or is this the only one that's a
Not
budget?
that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Okay.
He's the only one carrying that, believe.
There were some that were talking about it, but they didn't bring it to our attention. Okay, social services, we're a little bit behind, okay. Assessor, Ed Burkness. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Ed. Send it to everybody. Thank you.
Hey, Ed, floor is yours.
Sure, great. Out of my account, or my budget, I have 7 accounts, 6 without salaries, 4 showing no increases. I have 2 increases. 1 account, which is contractual services for quality data, that's a $50 increase. I have a $542 increase in the copier budget, for a total of $592 increase, which is approximately 0.2% of my budget.
Everything else is the same. Okay. Any questions?
And we are budgeting, where are we on the funding for the
We
next
got,
assessment?
we have a separate line.
That's a separate, I understand that, but as long as we're on assessor, we're budgeting enough for the next assessment on an annual basis.
Right. Finance director is taking care of that portion of it.
Thank you.
We blame her for that.
You will blame me for that when we get to that one.
It's better to smooth it.
Is there any questions of the assessor?
Just one question, Ed. Tools, technology tools, are there things that you're looking at or things that we need that are being foregone in this budget relative to making functionality easier?
Through Quality Data has an exceptional administrative program for our office, which handles basically all our needs. So I would say there's not anything that is absolutely necessary, but there are things like tablets for field work that's coming down the line, but these are still maybe about 5-6 years off in the future, but nothing absolutely immediately that's necessary.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, Ed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Look forward to your numbers.
Very soon.
Yeah. Not a day before.
All right. Next up is our tax collector, Debbie Polano. Morning, Debbie.
Good morning, everybody.
Start whenever you're ready.
Okay, so you have before you, the budget for the tax collector office. There were some increases. Copier had some increases. I wasn't sure about the DMV fees that, from the state. I wasn't sure if they were going to up that or not, so I put some little extra money in there. And I am asking for 2 desks for the office. So the office supplies has gone up. Currently, the girls sit at a counter that's held up by 2x4s. So I just feel that they should be facing the front window, because if somebody ever came in for safety reasons, security reasons.
Just to prove the point about the copiers, there's a row of them downstairs in the hallway.
Yeah, they look nice.
There's very visual aid to understand what's going on.
And speaking of copiers, you'll see that there were a couple of increases so far, but overall in the building, we had a decrease in the payments that we're making for copiers.
Good news.
So overall, there were a couple adjustments to the type of copiers in some of the smaller offices. That's where you're seeing some increases, but overall, the copier budget is down for the
Thank
new
you for
year.
that.
And kudos to the finance director on negotiating that deal.
Kudos to Darlene.
That's great.
Darlene handled that.
Quick question, desks, is that a capital item or not?
Yeah, they're
You know,
small.
It's 20.
It's
okay.
small.
It's small.
Yeah.
All right.
It does skew the budget from year to year, that's one thing, but
Because that's, I'm assuming the desks that are being replaced are probably 25 years old.
Well, they're not even desks. You can come down to the office. It's just a big counter.
Counter.
When they used to have the big rate books, and
Yeah.
they would record everything in there, it was great to lay those big books out. So.
They were even older than the steel gray desks we used to have in the Army.
And currently, the girls aren't facing the window,
Windows.
so yeah.
Can't see it.
So for safety reasons, there's.
Somebody will probably take one of those and make a mantle out of it somewhere in one of these fancy houses, right?
Yeah, there you
That
go.
could work.
And once they get past the historic.
Yeah, right. Ooh, you can have an auction.
we could get a $50 fee from that.
And we did have some.
Might be more, I
chairs.
don't know, that moving costs.
So GSA's under negotiations too, coming
Yes.
up? Okay.
Yeah.
Without belaboring it, we just equipped a new high school. Are there a few dozen old desks
Oh, they're
from the old
gone.
high schools
They're gone.
anywhere?
I called over there. And
Okay.
Yeah,
All
and they
right.
did
That's
not
fine.
have any. I did try that.
Okay.
So they're either down in some poor southern county or some third world country or in a trash heap someplace. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, anybody, any other questions from tax collector? Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. Town clerk? Ann Dwyer? Anna Dwyer, excuse me. Morning, Anna. Morning.
Well, my budget is pretty much the same as last year, except for salaries, which we don't know. And the copier is really the only increase, which I have no control over. But I'm not asking for anything, anything extra. Revenue, pretty much keeping the same because we don't have any fees. All our fees are set by the state of Connecticut, with the exception of the shellfish licenses, and there are no projected increases there. So, and some of those, pretty much dog licenses, shellfish licenses, notaries, those remain fairly the same from year to year.
I wonder how much the state is gonna take of the licenses we collect. Yeah, we don't know that either.
Well, we don't get very much from them now, so
Yeah.
for every dog license we issue, we get to keep $1.
Yeah, they'll
So,
probably take half of that.
you know, we don't get very much from them. So,
Okay, any questions for the tax, town clerk? All right, thank you, Anna.
thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
I think it's very clever of the finance director to negotiate a higher number for everybody else's copier and hers.
But hers? Yeah. I didn't look at.
Hey!
Okay, next up is our registrar's voters. Gloria Nimchuk and Louise Graver. Good morning, ladies.
I understand.
This should be an easier year for you now.
We hope so.
Let's put it this way, it can't get any
And,
worse.
you know, well, we're counting on you two ladies to have only one budget referendum too, so.
Thinking about that. Want to put a jinx on it.
Right.
So the total budget is slightly lower than last year, or what we projected. So, everything is just a little bit lower. We are increasing the salary per hour of the poll workers to make the minimum of $10.10 an hour. Education should be down because we're almost finished with our certification classes at UConn.
And so you should understand that on the line items, we budget for only one referendum, only one primary, only one election. And if we get slapped with a special election or a bunch of referenda, that number will increase.
Now, the referendum expense, the one you mentioned, that's for the budget. Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay.
And the poll worker's salary would be not under the referendum expenses, but the
Okay, now, we could be having a second referendum, not considering the budget, but with the Mulberry Point, Fellows Point project.
Water project.
Which I think we have to consider in this
You can't
budget.
put that in the same.
Why couldn't that just be a question on
There are
the April
a
budget?
number of reasons, but I'll give you the primary one is probably timing.
Is there a way to roll the cost of that referendum into the cost of the project?
No.
It's
We've
not
checked-
legal to do
No,
that?
we've checked that with council.
Have you,
We can't wait till November.
No.
So either way, okay.
We have a big town election coming in November. Have you budgeted adequately for that?
Yeah.
But you've also budgeted for a primary too, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if we don't have a primary, we still got the money for
And
the
the money
referendum in here. Hopefully, we'll know more about the timing on the water project by the time we put this budget.
Would that be before the April referendum?
Probably after.
Okay.
Okay.
But if the timing should coincide, could it then be just an extra question on the, or are they insisting on a separate referendum?
It could be, but it's up to the board of selectmen. Okay. That's the only point I wanted to bring out to both boards. So that's a cost of what? Referendum expense is $2,200,
plus
but you
salaries.
gotta add the salaries in there. So
Which is
what is the
about-
cost of salaries for a referendum? Now,
Well,
it's not, your cost is set.
I think it's
For the poll
like
workers.
This is-
6,000.
It's
for
hard to break it
salaries.
apart because, Sheila wanted all of the poll worker salaries lumped together, and prior to that, we had it split out.
Mhm.
So
Well-
it's less than a primary or a November election, but exactly how it breaks down,
Well,
we could only just give you a best guess.
Well, you don't
Well,
have
we
to
did-
give it
no,
to
for
the
the-
board now, if you can work up that number later.
no, I have it here.
You
For
did
the
learn
May
it.
17th budget referendum, it was
We usually figure about $5,000 per
5,300.
referendum.
Pretty close, 53.
Yep.
53, and what's the 22 on the referendum expense? What would that be?
The memory
ballots
cards and the memory
and
card
food.
programming,
And
Food.
memory cards.
Okay,
3 meals.
so you're talking roughly upwards about almost $8,000 with salary.
No,
no,
no.
Well,
No, it'd be
When
about
we
the other
say
end.
53,
That's
we
for
mean
3,
total.
then it'd be about,
700.
Oh, I'm sorry,
$700,
okay, I thought it was
$800 or
22,
so.
three, okay.
no.
Okay.
Can you explain
You're
that
talking
memory card?
6,000.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
About
Memory
six,
card?
About
yes,
six.
that's more like it, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I, I mean, aren't we talking about like memory cards you buy at
All right,
Staples?
there's
and
a
stick into this
history to
machine?
that. We originally bought memory cards that we owned when it first came, when we instituted the scanners. And then on those memory cards, we had 3 questions on one side, 3 questions on the other side, and they were ours. They did not belong to LHS. We'd had nothing done to them. Then it was decided that they didn't like the 3 and 3, so we had to go to a memory card that could handle 6 questions on one side of the ballot. So we weren't left with a situation where we had to turn the ballot over in order to complete it. And at that point, we started then buying memory cards because we weren't for each referendum. So, you know, we could go back if there's a firm decision that we want to use a one-sided ballot no matter what, even if there's only one question. So we're in a sort of a tricky situation.
We do have memory cards to accommodate back-to-back ballot or one-sided ballot.
So you don't have to buy any more memory cards, I guess that's what he's
Well-
asking.
They have to be programmed, though, don't they?
They do have to, no.
No?
Only the ballot has to have the verbiage on it. The memory card does not.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry to be dense on this, but the ballots, I understand, are the paper ballots, it's what everybody fills out with the bubble
Yeah.
and the little marker.
Mhm.
These memory cards, aren't we talking about reusable data storage cards?
For the referendum, but for a primary or November election, they have to be programmed for that.
So I just
I don't
asked.
think these are the typical thumb drive memory cards that you're thinking
Or
about.
just
where you
little
just plug it in.
Oh, it's a little
This is
card.
what registers the actual votes.
Right, yeah.
Right.
So that becomes the actual
That's the-
official record of the vote,
Yeah, that's the tallying portion of the whole scanner.
as opposed to the paper cards that actually go into the machine?
Those are the ballots.
That the memory card reads that.
This is amazing. Ooh, okay.
We didn't have to do that with the old machine.
Keep in mind, it's a state
It sounds like
program.
it's redundant.
So you just save the memory cards from each
Something
election?
has
Yes.
to add up.
Yeah, right.
How long are you
Yeah.
required to save the memory cards?
Well, at this
as long as
point,
they're
the
working.
memory cards that we originally bought for ourselves are outdated, so we would probably even then have to get new memory cards.
Okay.
And this is something the state has to sanction in some fashion.
Well, I would go with what the state says to go with,
Right.
especially.
Alternatively, we could hand count.
That might be
Are you
cheaper,
free
too.
that day?
Well, yeah.
No, I understand. All right.
Well, and you brought up a point, there's also the chance of an audit, which is a hand count of the cards if selected by chance.
Well, that's
And that
only
would
for.
be
That happened
only
one year, right,
for
George? Did you
November.
guys, did that happen one year?
Well, I
It
think
happened
you-
a bunch of years.
We've been
right.
audited every year, I think, haven't you?
Yeah. Since 2012, we had.
Well, they have moved it to
But we-
5% of the
Last year, we
precinct.
didn't get any audits.
Of course, you guys passed every audit, that's why. Okay, anything else for the registrar of voters? Oh, are we clear on, Lou, you're about, I think, as fuzzy as I am on this program.
I think I'm starting to get it. I mean,
Okay.
it sounds like there's a special dedicated piece of electronic data storage that the state, Secretary of State presumably has to sprinkle magic water on, and we all agree is going to be the official record of the vote. Is that the vernacular of this?
The state does not require that you use the scanner for referendum.
Well, but we have, once we pick the
Right,
scanner,
yeah.
this, presumably the device that is saving that information must need to be available to anyone who wants to double check the vote, or if there's a recount, or if there's an audit from the state, right? This is not just going into Staples, buying a little memory chip, which would be $8, and being done with it, even though that's all it's doing.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just saving data. I mean, you're saving a bunch of dots and dashes. I mean, this is like incredible that it's this complicated.
And it is locked down for, so many weeks afterwards.
Okay, thank you. Thank you guys for doing what you do.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ladies.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Nice
Thank
job.
you.
We've got a little ahead of schedule. Anybody want to take a break?
I think that works.
Okay. Mike, we'll come back in about 5 minutes. Okay, we're back, and we'll start this session off with the building department. Bill. We've got a little ahead of schedule. Anybody want to break?
I think that works.
Okay. Mike, we'll come back in about 5 minutes. Okay, we're back, and we'll start this session off with the building department. Bill Cody, our building official. Good morning, Bill.
Morning.
Okay, floor is yours. If you want to take us through your budget, please.
Okay. At this point, there's no changes from
Zero, there you go.
this year, so basically it's a one-for-one budget, and I think we hit it pretty close. We're going to hit it pretty close this year, so next year shouldn't be an exception. Not very exciting. Any any questions or anything that?
Yeah, Bill, I think we probably had this question last year, but the contracted services, which is replacement for vacation, et cetera, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The jump from 2015 to 2016 was virtually double, and you're keeping it flat. What was the reason for the jump 2015 to 16 to 16, 17?
The base number of the 7,700.
Yeah.
That's been that way for 3 or 4 years, probably 5 years, since I started by myself.
All right. All right. So we had actual expended of 1940 in fiscal year 15, 3860 in fiscal year 16.
Yeah, that was happening in those years. We were crediting the services in this budget from the high school
project.
High school project for George Goodovin services.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, that was kind of a lot of give and take on the end.
It's unfair to look back at those numbers as any kind of historical, without some historical context understood.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay, Bill, thank you.
Okay, thank you. That gets easier every year.
Keep it
Don't
level.
count on it.
Your budget, it will.
All right, natural resources. Kevin McGee. Morning, Kevin.
Morning.
Kevin?
Not much difference from the budgets presented in the past couple of years. Covers salaries, part-time commission secretaries, the GIS system, legal notices for the Inland Wetlands Commission, office supplies, tree removal, education training and vehicle maintenance. I have 2 vehicles, one gets shared with Youth and Family Services. The 2 points really increase, or one really is the big increase is with tree removal of increased budget to $90,000. The fiscal year 2015-2016, I spent $85,903 in tree removals. This current year, roughly about $65,000 out of the $70,000 budget, and that's probably going to go over. Our big thing heading up with trees is actually the emerald ash borers hit town, and that's going to be a devastation to several areas of town there. So that's going to be, and they say it's about a 5-year kind of pattern where it increases about 4 years, and actually then decreases. So actually, it's an 8-year process where you things are going to basically take out the ash trees, just like the hemlocks did years ago. So,
could you repeat that again? I'm sorry, I missed that.
the emerald ash borer
Yeah.
is going to basically destroy all the ash trees. along our roads and in town. And it comes in sort of like as a bell curve. It comes in first couple of years, couple of trees, couple more trees, kind of exponentially increases till basically peaks, and then slowly drops back off. And it's about an 8-year curve that they telling us about.
And there's no way to mitigate that or prevent it, or?
The mitigation is a lot more expensive than the removal. There is
But
injections you can put around trees, and there's about a couple $100 depending on the diameter of the trees there. So it's
Is that just forestalling the issue, or is it actually fixing the issue?
pretty much stalls it, because unless you keep on going forever with the
In all the area.
in all the areas and stuff like
We're
that.
simply part of a bigger problem.
Right. I mean, the only areas I'm treating is through the green budget is actually, I think there's 6 ash trees, pretty decent size on the green, and those I've been treating for the past 3 years with the injections because of the location, the caliber, and the look, basically what the green is. But anywhere else in town, it's just a lot easier. You're just going to have to remove them. There's no real bug yet that they found which can come and eat these things and stuff.
We don't arbitrarily. We only remove them when they're
We
by the
remove
roads
them
or
when they-
wires or a hazard or something.
Yeah,
We're
but
not just
remove them if
removing all
the
ash.
tree's leaning towards the road or has a threat to the road, and it's infected and it's at a point where it's going to become a hazard, we remove it. If the tree is infected but maybe might be leaning to an open space area, the water company property, something like that, and it looks like it's going to fall that way, we'll just monitor it and it falls where it falls.
Now, is it just in the coastal area, or is it a statewide problem?
It's a statewide
or a region problem?
It's a statewide problem. It's been pushing in from the west over the past 10 years or so. I'm not sure if you travel, you see signs saying "Do not move firewood." That's the reason why you had these signs up years ago. A couple of years ago, they actually had a quarantine where in Haven County you can move firewood out in Haven. It's actually been found throughout the state now where they actually dropped the quarantine within the state, but there's quarantines regionally where you can't haul firewood from Connecticut to Massachusetts or Rhode Island because those areas, certain areas, haven't been infested yet.
And this is a dumb question, but
Ask it
I'll ask it anyway, because I usually do ask dumb questions. Is DEEP going to provide any grants to help us with this?
There's no funding for it. There's
I know it
nothing.
was a dumb question.
There's nothing on the national level. I mean, besides national level research trying to find some sort of parasite or bug or something like that, which will eat the amylash spore or its egg or something. Stuff
What
like
about
that.
our friends at Eversource? Are they gonna help us out anywhere?
Eversource is doing their routine, their trimming and stuff. I'm not objecting to any ash trees that they've been asking for removal.
Why would you?
How many trees, just roughly, does $90,000 get you cut?
It's depending on the average. I mean, like some smaller trees average $800. I have larger trees about $2,000, or $2,500. So
You're talking less than 100 trees
yeah,
for $90,000.
for you're probably
Over
looking.
a town the size of
What do you?
Liechtenstein.
And we have a very large wooded footprint, especially when you go north and stuff. It's,
All right, now we're only,
But
we're only
but-
discussing, I'm sorry about
Yeah.
that, only discussing about trees that are on town property.
Town property.
And that pose a danger.
correct.
Okay. We're
Correct,
not
yep.
talking about trees in the woods.
No, we're not talking
Okay.
about trees in the woods. Those fall as they fall, and like I said, this budget is basically roadside trees that we maintain under normal conditions. If it's a storm and stuff like that, we calculate all the damages, and hopefully we get FEMA reimbursement on bigger storms.
You said we were, did you?
Yeah, go ahead, I was asking the same question to Joe.
Okay. Did you say we were at about 65 so far this year?
Correct.
We talked about it last night.
Yeah.
The encumbrances are actually over budget at the moment.
I was actually looking at the encumbrances. I have to check with you on that. I'm not sure if they're all actually coming off of the encumbrances.
Good.
The bills are actually coming off the encumbrances.
But you must identify the trees throughout the year. It isn't, no, which I can't use that calculation that we're halfway through, so we have another half. and we're gonna double it. I mean, that's not the logic, right?
No, usually when I hit about May, I basically, unless it's like it's ready to fall, I start holding off until July.
But you're able to identify.
Yeah, you're
the
able to
tree.
identify, yeah.
Right.
I mean, I have some in my head that I know out there, and it's like, I think there's 3 or 4 it's been pointed out to me by Public Works, which may need to come down. And then you get phone calls from the public, and once you're notified about those, you have to take actions, and if it falls, I'm dealing with the insurance company, knowing about it becomes increases liability.
It isn't a budget issue, but I noticed the signs on the trees. What is the cycle for when you post it, and how long does it take to?
It's the signs. There's a 10-day period for the public to object to or request a public hearing, and then anytime after that 10-day period, it can be removed. I usually wait till that 10-day period, then I get a cost
after
from
a sign is posted, it's only 10 days.
up to 10 days. As long as it's posted on the tree, they still can.
Yeah, I mean, you can have the discussion, but that's interesting. I thought it was like a 3 or 4 month deal.
No, once it's up there, then I usually wait until after the hearing period before I get a price on it, and then they're scheduling. So you're looking at a little over a month out from the poster. A lot of the stuff out there is they see now is is from the power company, and they're still catching up on what they asked me to post for them.
A lot of posts.
This past year, they moved quite a few trees. They did their what they call ETT work, which is ground to sky tree trimming, and anything hazardous within a certain distance of the wires they remove. And they did some heavy removals on Goose Lane, South Union Street, Mulberry Point, and Sitcham's Head area, which were the ones that designated for this heavy removal. And they, by their, I guess, number of outages and user area, determine which method they're going to be trimming. If it's just going to be trimming the branches around it, or if they're going after the heavier protection of their system there.
Kevin, is there any use that the town can get from the wood that's generated from the trees, either for parks or playgrounds or things like that? I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking, or is that an additional cost that?
I think that comes into additional cost of now. Once the wood's there, I mean, right now I have it set where the contractor takes down the tree, they remove the wood. So it's in less thought on or less things I have to worry about. If you leave it, I mean, I heard some areas where some towns are looking into other uses, and but the question is having Public Works having time to come get the wood, store it, split it, and then deliver it to, a lot of times it might be connected to like social services or something like that. But there's a, like I said, another labor cost on Public Works and stuff to handle that end of it. The power company, they leave the wood on the side of the road, people come collect it, it's less for them to remove later. But for my part, if I leave it, and once they leave the area, our contractors leave the area, it costs more for them to come back in, so it's just as efficient for me to have them just cut it and remove the wood. There's been some pretty good, pickups there.
So the remains of the tree that just came down on the green, they've been there for a while, right?
Yep, that's coming. They have a person that's interested in that is coming tomorrow to get that, and it's actually being milled.
Okay. And is there a cost to have the contractor take the wood away?
In this instance here, no, it's the person wanted the wood there.
But typically,
typically there is a cost built into my budget for the contractor to take the wood. They kind of put that in their cost there.
In their cost basis.
Yep.
Kevin, I got an article out of the paper. Apparently the Wesleyan, groups of Wesleyan students used GIS and provided a lot of data to Middletown. Maybe in conjunction with some of our illustrious Wesleyan graduates, we could take advantage of some of their services. Obviously it's a walk from Wesleyan to the Middletown Town Hall, so there are logistical issues, but if that's part of their academic process, maybe there's a resource there as an intern or something that we could use to
I think we could check on, because I think it might be other Wesleyan, there's basically other universities too which teach this product here, so it's could be a something to look into.
Change the budget, but it might be a resource.
Any
Yeah.
other questions for Kevin? Okay, Kevin, thank you.
Thank you.
Planning and zoning, our town planner, George Kroll. Morning, George.
As you see, proposing a slight decrease in the budget, notwithstanding whatever salary adjustments are made. We've been trending a little bit lower on the outside secretarial services for committees and boards and commissions, so I'm projecting a little bit lower number there. Our vehicle use is more efficient these days since we're using the Prius. And otherwise, everything is holding basically the same, projecting a slight increase in advertising costs, which is a function of applications, number of applications that we receive. I'm also projecting for that same reason a slight increase in revenue based on a slight upward trend in level of building and development activity. Otherwise, everything pretty much the same. Not very exciting.
I have two questions for items that are on your, line items that are on your budget but don't have any allocations to them. So code maintenance has been 3 years. Is that something that comes up periodically and you just do, or why is that still there? And what is it?
It's not necessary to be there. That was a line item that was put in the budget to redevelop, revise, and reconfigure the zoning code.
Okay.
We're done with that, and we're not contemplating any new code maintenance, so that could come off this list. Similarly, plan of conservation and development.
Yeah.
It's not something that we're anticipating spending money on in the next couple of years, so.
So the plan of conservation and development, though, is that something that doesn't that have to happen every so often, every 10 years or so?
Yeah, in theory,
And
every 10 years.
state mandates.
Yeah. Yes, we
And
just
so
adopted a
you
new
just
one
you
2
just
years
every
ago.
10 years you
So we're
drop
done with that,
$25,000 into that, as opposed to allocating some over
Well,
time?
it's more than 25.
Well, it's more than that.
Oh, it was
That
25.
item really is sort of a catch-all for any other sort of planning projects that we might initiate that would require outside funding, but such as coastal resilience plan or town center south or some of the other plans that we've done historically, but we don't really foresee doing anything like that in the near future.
So in years when that comes up, you just add that item?
Yes.
As opposed to allocate
Right.
something every year against the day when you're going to need it?
I would prefer to keep that as a line item in the
Yeah, no, I
budget,
get
even
it.
though it's zeroed out. The other, the code maintenance can come out for sure.
Not a big deal. Okay.
I mean, we could start to set up a reserve for it, but that's,
It's some other
Yeah.
similar items are handled that way. I was just curious.
Right, I can look into the total expense of that and
Mhm.
make some type of
Just smooth it
recommendation.
out, I suppose. Same amount of dollars.
this might not be the year to start, so.
Fair enough.
Okay.
George, on the advertising public notice, the current fiscal year, you're only about 27% expended. Has this been an unusually low year? You're asking for an increase coming off of a year where it looks like if you
Yeah.
did a straight line projection, you'd only spend about 55 or 60% of your budget. I know that it depends on.
It's totally arbitrary. It's very
Right.
hard to, predict
Predict.
if you have a big application with
Right.
lots of public hearings and lots of advertising associated with it.
Right.
They can be very expensive, so
Okay.
it's pretty hard to project in reality.
That we use something like a 3-year rolling average, something along those lines?
Yeah, I think that's kind of where we are with this.
It's close.
A couple $100 plus or minus.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Health Department. Dennis Johnson, our Health Director.
Good morning.
Morning, Dennis.
Morning, Dennis.
My budget request for 2017-2018 is less than a 1% increase over last year. Actually, it's about a 0.2% increase. The salary, no salary increases are reflected in the staffing positions until the contracts, I guess, are settled. Most of my line items have pretty much stayed the same. Biggest one, the mosquito control contract. That's not up for renewal until 2018, 2019 budget year, so that's staying the same. There was an increase in education and training, increased that $400. I have a new staff member who occasionally has training needs, expenses for training. The state doesn't provide a lot of free training anymore for employees who are professionals, so I'm anticipating some training expenses. Let's see. A uniform allowance went up by contract with the GEA. We have to provide a $300 clothing allowance for sanitarian. So that was added to the budget for next year. So it's about a $400 increase in my non-salary items. It's pretty similar to last year. It's not anticipating really any large increases in expenses in the budget. The revenue side, increasing a little bit, 33,620. I'm estimating a bit more increase in sanitary permits. We have more commercial buildings that are being built in Guilford, the Fonticello property, some condominiums on the West Main Street. Those are commercial septic systems. We charge more for those. It's a pretty good revenue source. Food permits kind of staying about the same. We have a few more food events, temporary food events now, and food vending trucks that generate more revenue in the summer, and anticipating a bit of increase in that. Otherwise, the rest of the items are pretty much staying the same. The economy is not real great for development right now, but it seems like commercial buildings are leading the way as far as development, which generates a bit more revenue for us. That's about it. It's nothing really exciting in the budget. If you have any questions, be glad to answer them.
Just when the pending situation with water up at Mulberry Point, will that increase the burden on your staff, your organization, from an expense perspective?
No.
Okay.
Probably would lessen it because there's
less testing,
less well problems.
up there.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it.
Yes.
Mosquito control area remains the same from year to year.
Yeah, we pretty much have
no
that.
evidence that it might be enlarged.
No, not at this point. You know, Guilford has a lot of salt marshes, and we focus primarily on larviciding the salt marshes and doing spot treatment occasionally when we have an outbreak. But we stay along the shoreline with our mosquito control program. We haven't migrated inland, you know, the backyard mosquito control. So, you know, unless global warming produces some type of new pandemic with mosquitoes, you know, I don't see any need to expand that at this point.
Speaking of pandemics, Zika is yet to appear here. The Zika virus,
No, we haven't had any people get infected with local mosquitoes.
That's right.
They've all been transplants that come up here from down south or transmitted that way, basically
Gotcha.
person to person, but not through mosquito-borne disease. Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Next up is Board of Selectmen, Karen Kersey, Executive Assistant.
Morning.
Be nice. Not her. Be nice to her.
Goes both ways, right? The overall increase to the Board of Selectmen's budget this year is less than 1%. Increase is due in part to negotiated salary increases, and we also had this year a request from GCTV to share in the replacement cost for one of 3 needed mixers needed for the taping of the Board of Selectmen meetings. And I understand this is going to be hopefully a shared cost with the Board of Education
And GCTV.
And GCTV, thank you.
Yes, three.
Um,
And that's contingent on all three being replaced. If not, we're
Right.
not gonna do it.
The increases, excuse me, were offset by a decrease in our code maintenance line. That's our Laserfiche program, the online code book. We had a lot of ordinance updates last year. We don't anticipate that many this year. We have a new copier contract, which reduced our cost for the copier lease.
Thank you.
Please note, that's the selectmen's budget.
We reduced public information with more and more access, for the public having more and more access to online formats of getting their information. We've been able to reduce that line pretty much every year recently. We made a reduction in postage. We have a new mail machine lease, and we were able to reduce the cost for the mail machine. And then one other issue that I wanted to address was last year, the First Selectman's vehicle, which is a 2008 vehicle, had some major maintenance work done. It included tires, struts, brakes, and rotors. Those are sort of a one-time, hopefully, expense that you incur with a 9-year-old vehicle. So we reduced that line item again this year, and we've held costs wherever we can in the budget. A little bit, but it was 3,000 the year before. So we increased it slightly because it is an older vehicle, but last year was sort of an anomaly, so that's why I wanted to explain that a
I
little
said
bit.
to be nice.
Driver's education.
Karen, I thought you also said you'd reduce code maintenance. This book shows just flat, 12 to 12. Is there an updated sheet? No.
No, that's flat.
Okay.
Yeah.
My mistake, I'm sorry.
No. Okay, no biggie.
Okay. Questions?
Just won the flags for Memorial Day, all new flags, is that what we're buying?
Every year,
Every
yeah,
year.
it's every year. We reimburse the VFW, they purchase them and we reimburse them.
Okay. Well, this year there was a $2,300 increase.
Yeah, why?
Yeah.
And now next year there's another increase.
Yeah, it went, I thought it might be cyclical every couple of years, because you had it at 35.69, then went to 25.52, and then to 4,100, now to 64.50.
That should be under, that 6450 should be under the miscellaneous line. That was the increase that was due to the GCTV.
The last three lines are up one. So the flags go down?
Oh, yeah, that's the probate court should be 6,500.
I don't have the same sheet that you're looking at, so.
Okay.
All right.
And the historian expense
Should be
should be
350. And the
This wasn't lined up
miscellaneous,
correctly.
and the
Okay.
miscellaneous should be
The
6450.
6,450 is the miscellaneous, and the Memorial Day should be 2,900. Am I correct on that, Karen?
Yeah.
Okay. So this, you gotta give us a new page on
Yep,
this.
we'll-
Okay.
we'll revise that
Okay.
page.
All right. So something went awry when we got this.
I'm lining it up, yeah.
Okay. Good catch, well, but.
First one of the day, finally woke up.
So the historian would be happy if,
Yeah.
If I gave him 6,500.
So what should-
You know how much stationery he would buy?
I could write another book.
Okay, but, no, the flags are, yeah, we made constant thing. I think what you did is miss the flags. The vehicle maintenance is at 2,900.
Yeah, vehicle maintenance at 2,900,
Right.
what should Memorial Day be?
Memorial
4,100.
Day should be about the 4,100.
That's
Okay.
Thank you. So my question then is that 433.77, because I can't do that math fast enough?
No, we
Is
need
that
to-
increased by $4,100?
That's what it appears to be, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
When it was keyed in, something was missed.
So that's probably gonna make the current increase somewhere around 1.3%? All right.
Okay. Good. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, what am I up to here? Legal. Ann Milliman, in-house counsel.
Morning.
take a look at that before we end. Somebody, Sandy, go back and figure
The
that
amount
out.
of increase is not
Okay.
very much. Under general legal expense, projection is the same as last year, 40,000. Just a reminder, general legal expense is police FOI matters falls under that, certain other police matters, youth and family services, subpoena matters, contract preparation, negotiation for some of our larger bids and construction projects, and to some degree, some due diligence work on the possible water main extension. Some of the fees are going into the legal expense, which, if the water main extension was successful, according to our outside counsel, Norb Church, those would be, it's basically a loan. We'll get those monies back, and that amount of those legal fees will be part of the assessment to the owners taking advantage of the water main extension. The court's, it's just a standard amount of $2,000. Labor negotiations, again, holding at about $100,000. We have numerous contracts outstanding. GEA, GSA is going to be due to be negotiated. Teamsters, dispatchers. This line item also includes police grievances, which historically was in the police budget. Other type of employee grievances, heart and hypertension cases, which are not covered by insurance, and we do have at least one of those outstanding. CHRO matters, Connecticut Commission on Human Rights matters, and pension matters. The next line is judgments and losses. This is just a standard reserve account, which we put $5,000 in. It's for judgments not covered by town's insurance or which exceeds the town coverage limitations.
And who pays your occupational tax?
I have an exemption.
That's what I thought, okay.
The assessment reval claims, this is coming down, which is historically consistent with the way these, we're in the year where it will be the least amount. And then we have the new reval coming. We do have $50,000 in this. We have a couple of outstanding appeals, and we anticipate one may go, we may be heavily negotiating one of them. So and I've also consulted LeClaire Ryan on their evaluation of what amount to put there, and this is in line with what they're suggesting as well. We've created a new line item, general zoning matters. It used to be pooled under general legal expense, but this current year we're experiencing a lot more activity in that area than in some of the prior years, so we kind of thought it would be more transparent for you to see, what is really being spent on this line item as opposed to being pulled into general. We have an ongoing matter there that, again, the land use lawyer believes, it could create some expense for us, so we're suggesting to put $20,000 in there for that ongoing matter, as well as this is also used a lot of times. There's kind of legal analysis requests from P&Z or ZBA or zoning enforcement officer or the town planner, and so they're seeking guidance, legal advice on certain matters. It goes into this line item now. Dues and memberships is pretty much the same. Education and training, I want to point out, this is pretty much the number I gave last year. although there's been a change to the law that we now are required continuing legal education credits. We need 12 a year, so I'm going to have to take some courses. Hopefully I can just sit at my computer and take them, but I imagine this might be a little bit higher.
The 20 that you have there is specifically for this one situation that is out there now, primarily?
Primarily, I would say that. But it also includes that general advice and maybe something that we're not anticipating.
The figure of 50,000 for assessment and reval claims, it seems modest considering where we're at with the new
It's
reval.
interesting. As I say, it's in line with what LeClaire Ryan is suggesting. We have I got an update from Chuck Anders yesterday. We had 10 open appeals from the 2015 assessment as of prior to the pretrial that occurred in January of this year, and 8 of those 10 settled from that pretrial. So that was good news, and it really, I think, goes to that. So I'm believing it's not modest, but as I say, one of the cases could be.
You just need one.
Just need one,
You
exactly.
pretty much we're at the tail end of the last reval.
Nothing in the upcoming reval is.
No, we wouldn't get
on the
those
horizon.
until the
We won't
next,
get that, no.
until the next budget.
That will be a little.
That's when you'll get your.
A little more immodest.
Yeah.
Next year.
Hope not, but,
It's
it's
always
being foolish
possible.
if we said, we'd get, that's when you, like Matt just said,
That's
they
true.
attribute to spike.
Yeah, I know we've used historical trends post-reval for a long time, and it's pretty consistent. It's your bell curve, or well, really it
Exactly.
accelerates. It doesn't not a bell at the front end, but it tails down.
Yep.
The significance here is the last reval had a major impact on the grand list. There was a decrease in the grand list, and some of the stuff I'm reading now is based on Connecticut data. It's pretty flat in terms of housing values. Once we got past that last reval, they don't anticipate much valuation change here in the state.
Yes, and
So
actually,
there tends to be less appeals because there's less fluctuation. less
Exactly,
appeals.
and actually Ed, I talked to Ed, met with Ed on it, and he also said because the market is flat down, he doesn't anticipate the level of appeals that we had.
But, all you need is one major commercial appeal that can tie you up, or one large residential property that does not want to settle, that can tie you up.
Yes.
I assume we're still weighing the cost of litigation to the value of.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not weighing that, but Chuck Anders with Ed is weighing that. That's.
And eventually, we get to that point, it would come to this board to make that decision.
Right, which we've done in the past.
We've done it in the past.
Yes.
Exactly.
Good. Anything else? Thank you, Pam.
Thank you, Pam.
Okay, I'm looking at, oh, Mitch, you're right here, Human Resources.
Okay.
Mitch Goldblatt, Director.
All right.
You're gonna handle, while we're on it, you're gonna handle Human Resources, employee benefits, and insurance.
Yep,
Okay.
three different budgets. Yeah, the first is the Human Resources budget, which is basically my department budget. The salary is up a bit contractually. And then the rest of the budget is pretty well flat, because whereas we had to increase our printing by $50, we are able to reduce the office supplies by $50, and whereby I need to increase the educational support and technical support by $200. I've also been able to decrease the permits dues, basically subscriptions, down by $200. So that's pretty much it.
And you have one employee who is in GEA.
One employee is in GEA, correct.
Okay. Questions on the Human Resources budget? Anybody? Nope. Okay, you want to move on?
Yep.
To
Employee
employee
benefits.
benefits, which we might have some questions on.
I think we might.
All right, employee benefits, pass these around. Board of Selectmen sheets are coming around that have been revised
correct
very
ones,
very quickly.
Thank you. All right, we'll go, we need to go back to those, we will. Why don't you go on to the employee benefits?
All right.
Thank you.
All right, so employee benefits, first up is the reserve for personnel, which has been discussed many times in the last 2 days. This is the account that accounts for all those contract and wage increases, so you can see the number we've put aside there. 275, 646 for that. The pension budget, you've got some background information on that. The pension budget really either needs to be broken out in the future or retitled the retirement benefits budget, because it includes a number of different things, including not just the pension, which is a good portion of this, obviously, but also the contribution to the Teamsters pension, the deferred compensation, the actuarial fees are in this, legal fees, the volunteer financial security plan, as well as our 401A expenses. For those who are newer employees who are not on the traditional pension plan, who have been moved to a defined contribution plan. So all of that together is creating a 10.3% increase this year in pension, mostly due to the pension costs going up, but does include a lot of other things. The heart and hypertension line remains the same. We've got a couple potential, Pam just mentioned, potential claims. We're just basically a reserve account there. Retirement benefits is the same as it's been for years for two individuals who are not covered under the town's pension plan with separate separation agreements. The FICA, as determined with Mary Jane's help, obviously, up 1.7%, and we've been able to keep this below what your overall salary increases will end up being, because we continue to put part-time seasonal employees into the Social Security Alternative Plan, which creates an issue where we don't have to contribute Social Security to that. Unemployment compensation has risen. We've had some separations with certain employees that have put an increase up in the unemployment compensation. I've had to increase that line item by $6,000. Our retirement sick leave budget, there are still quite a few employees who are, for the most part, grandfathered for retirement sick leave. We basically had a large account for this that has been exhausted. We've had a number, as you've heard other department heads mention, we've had a number of long-term employees who terminated employment by retirement in the last year, which has basically wiped out what we had reserved as well as last year's budget. Anticipation for retirements this year, we're putting together $165,000 need for that, which would increase that line item so that we can keep up with those who get a retirement sick leave payout. The longevity, for the moment, has been frozen in the GEA contract. There's been a couple retirements here too, so we've been able to decrease this budget by $700. Medical insurance, you can see that we have a slight decrease in the medical insurance. The reason for that is mostly because we have less contracts. There's been a few more people that have waived their insurance coverage from the town. Our waivers that we're paying now are less than what they used to be for new employees, and our medical insurance does not seem to be, we're self-insured, as I think everyone knows, and our expenses in that so far this year seem to be along the line of what we budgeted, so we're not seeing the huge increases you're hearing about in other places. So I feel fortunate that line item is actually going to be pretty well flat, a little bit below. The life insurance, this is, we pay for full-time employees, since our full-time workforce is pretty much the same, so is life insurance for next year. As is the next item, the employee assistance plan. These are based on full-time employees, and so we've been able to keep those rates the same. Therefore, the line item does not go up. And the waste transfer station reimbursement is actually decreased a bit based on the reimbursement for FICA, medical insurance, life insurance, pension contributions that Mary Jane and I work on to come up with that number. That's it for employee benefits. Are there questions? If not, I'll move on to insurance.
Yeah, I would just say, and I know you have a very detailed schedule in behind, but I would suggest that we break out pension and defined contribution costs as separate line items. It would be, as this gets tracked going forward, I think it would be useful to see
Absolutely.
what's pension and what's defined contribution.
Right.
And I know some of that is allocation of legal expense and pension committee expense and whatever, but, you know, which might be arbitrary, but.
As I mentioned, Gary, we have been talking about that. We're not going to do it this year, but I think we'll probably take that into advisement for next year for the exact reasons you just mentioned, so.
Okay.
We'll look at that. Insurance budget. To that.
You know,
Sorry, Joe?
I don't know why I never brought this up in prior years. The actuary fees, why are we not charging that to the pension plan? I mean, we don't, it has nothing to do with the 401, nothing to do with the Teamsters, nothing to do with the firemen, or nothing to do with the 457.
Mm-hmm.
But it has solely to do with the police and the town pension plan. Why are we burdening the operating budget with it? I'd throw that out for discussion.
Yeah, it's a good point, Joe. My question is probably, the answer to that is that's the way we've always done it, probably. Is there anything in the original ordinance that created the pension, the pensions for our employees that stipulated that that's the way it was?
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know.
The valuations are a requirement for our audit. You know, that's a bulk of that fee.
So,
The entire
but it's
35,000.
multi-purpose then?
Yeah.
Right?
And
So
they-
maybe
and they
shared?
get- I think Casby responded.
Maybe something we can ask Mike about?
Yep, we can look into that.
I mean, it's 125,000 in this budget.
Well, I think at most, Joe, I think we'd be able to move 75 at most, because the volunteer fire.
Oh, the OPEB and the volunteer. I'm sorry,
Would
that's the
not be
wrong
able to
one.
be put against the
I mean,
pension.
it's worth a shot.
Because they have a separate.
Yeah, they're
Because-
separate, they're not part of the pension, but
Because when
Joe's point.
Mike's bills come in and he works on the pension, we charge that to the pension.
Okay.
I don't know why I didn't ask this question before.
Okay. Hey, we're just following suit as to what we've done in the past, I think, so we can start looking into that.
When he has objection, we should ask the question.
Absolutely.
Well, we get charged for the pension, I don't know what that does to your actuarial number, it may come back the other way. If we take out, it may have to be put back in, so. but,
It's not gonna change the contribution.
6 of one, half dozen of the other, isn't it?
Well, not really.
I don't know, that's something the actuary will have to answer for us and legal counsel, so I can ask that going forward.
Okay.
Pension's all done on percentages, not dollar for dollar, so it won't be dollar for dollar.
It's a question I'd like to ask.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right.
the question I had. Okay.
Insurance. Okay, the workers' comp, doing some, first of all, for workers' comp and the LAP, we do not have the final figures yet, but we've got a good guesstimate where we're gonna be, so, looking at about a 6.7% increase in workers' comp over last year, and a 4.1% increase over the LAP from last year. Actually, the increases are over what we actually spent, to come up with the numbers there, so it's not as high as it might have been projected by KERMA. We have a small increase in the crime and fiduciary policies. That's mostly the fiduciary policy, because as our pension assets rise, so does that liability for the policy that covered it. The rest of the policies are pretty much flat. Miscellaneous insurance is flat, so that stays the same. The claims deductibles, we've put this in there to provide for a catch-all if we've got an issue with some miscellaneous deductibles, there's 20,000 there. Our insurance consultant, cost of 10,000 is the same. We've got a contract there. The reimbursements then have been recalculated based on current figures with Mary Jane's help, the waste transfer station, library reimbursement, police outside services, adjustments we made were necessary. And then the KERMA distribution has basically plugged in there for a $10,000 hopeful distribution. We've been fortunate the last couple of years to have more than that, but we don't get too optimistic. So.
I'll just note that the reimbursements are contingent upon any changes made in the other lines, so they're all connected.
And the KERMA is never a given.
Yeah,
The
there was
distribution's
one year we
never
didn't get anything, and other years we've been closer to the 40,000 range, so it's been good for us, but we don't want to count our chickens there. So we put a small number in there, I think we will get something, but I'm not sure. And that won't be announced until months from now after the budget is complete.
The workers' comp line item includes both payment and administration, that's just, KERMA manages that?
Yes.
And how many employees? It's just the town employees, obviously not the school.
School has a separate line item for workers' comp.
Okay.
We do with both the liability, auto, and property, as well as workers' comp. We work with the Board of Ed. We have one lump policy, and then so we're pooled together, but we do then split up the expenses.
So how many employees is this cover here?
Well,
All the town employees?
We have about 180 full-time employees, but we've also about 50 permanent part-time employees, and we have all the seasonal and part-time employees, especially over Parks and Rec. So it covers everybody. I mean, obviously, most of your expense is going to come out if a full-time employee is injured, but even a part-time employee who's injured is covered by workers' comp. So there are
And
expenses there too.
That goes for an employee who is paid out of Park and Rec program fees, who's not considered, paid out of the operating budget, so. But he's still covered, he or she is still covered in the work.
Yeah. So that 6.7% increase, I mean, those must be, it's just an actuarial number that the KERMA comes up with based on claim?
Based on claims,
Previous year's
our claims history,
Modification.
and the modification numbers, as well as, basically what they've told us up front, which hopefully when we get the final numbers, as we get more and more data closer to the end of the year, will come down a bit, but we're not sure. So we basically, they're showing a 10% increase. The reason it's 6.7 is because from the time we budgeted last year, we actually we lowered the number a bit, so we were able to go about 6.7 is what I figure, and that should be enough to cover us for the year. And I did a similar calculation with the LAP, and we should be good.
Okay.
Thanks, Mitch.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch.
Yep.
Okay, up to information systems, finance, debt service, and contingency. I believe that's all you, Mary Jane, right? Okay.
Okay,
Before we go on, just, I'm sorry, everybody get the revised, or corrected, I should say, Board of Selectmen budget. It doesn't look like the percentages have changed, so.
The dollars were all bottom line, it was right.
I'm sorry?
The
Jen?
bottom line was correct.
Okay.
Oh, good.
But it was just, there was a line added and a line missing.
Okay. Okay, so if
So-
anybody wants to address that before we adjourn, we can.
So Matt, your concern there has been alleviated.
Right, because it's inclusive, so there's not an additional
Right.
point.
Okay. Okay, all right, Mary Jane, thank you.
Information systems, salaries are being held flat because of the contract negotiations. The other line items are pretty much the same. We have the same systems that we will be supporting for our network services, all of our software licensing support. We cover a lot of the quality data as well as all of the munis in this budget, and so you'll see those numbers reflected. There is an increase through quality data this year. We have in the current year, putting in a module that interfaces between tax collector and finance. That hasn't been done yet, but we do have that budgeted this year. So part of the increase in the quality data is supporting that, plus just their regular increases that we see year over year. And so that's that increase. We have a decrease in education and training, because again, in the current year, we're going to be doing an assessment of the services with Munis that we don't have to fund this year. So we have a decrease there. Overall, without the salary, we have a 4.2% decrease in this budget.
Good. Questions?
Capital for information systems? Just taking a look here. We're replacing some servers. The thing that was interesting was migration of emails in Outlook to cloud. So we're going to move to a hosted model.
It's something that Tony is proposing because emails taking up more and more space on our servers. We would have to replace those, so if we can utilize the cloud, that would help with our data storage.
So that hasn't been decided yet?
Nope, it's in the capital budget.
It is in the capital budget. What offsets, if any, i.e. in terms of licenses, et cetera, on your operating budget? Because you're basically taking that system, removing it from here, which means you're not paying licenses and hardware, and you're moving it to the cloud. So is there a corresponding offset?
There are fees for the cloud
Understood,
as well.
Understood. Have those been netted out? Are those in this operating budget?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
You can get back to us.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Thank you.
And the PC replacement, do we know how many there are in that 16,000?
I do have those figures. I didn't bring the capital budget
That's
with me.
fine.
I apologize.
You could just forward that along to us at some point.
It's in the capital.
Is it in the capital?
It's in the capital.
Yeah, it's in the book.
Right.
All of
I will
these.
look at it then. You don't need to get me anything on that.
Okay.
And our replacement cycle window, I know we tend to keep them a lot longer than they do in private industry. Is it 5 to 7 year window?
5 to 7.
5 to 7?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you. Okay, you want to talk about your finance department?
The finance department budget is also showing a decrease. We do have some full-time salaries that are still under negotiation, but otherwise we will show a considerable decrease in that line item due to staffing changes. And the only other line that we're really adjusting is the education and training. I have put in to attend the GFOA conference. I am a board member on GFOA and would be seeking your support of attending the conference that they have.
You have my support. I think it's a valuable institution, valuable organization to participate with.
The only other thing I'd like to note is that our audit currently this year is going out for RFP. So I've put it in flat for this year, but until Pam and I complete that process, we won't know for sure. But we should have that number, before we finalize it.
I usually have 2 minutes, but it just stopped 2 minutes early, so
Thank God.
Okay.
But we did have membership. We had membership for a long time.
I didn't even know we had
I had
membership.
kept the membership.
She never attended any of
She didn't attend. I had kept
We
the membership.
needed to have membership in GFOA in order
get the
to get the certificate from
Is
CAFR.
that right?
That's why we did it.
Yeah.
Mhm. So we are continuing
Right.
with that as well. So that
Okay.
those numbers are in the budget.
Did we didn't submit last year's budget, did we?
Well, I have a January 31st deadline, so I've been concentrating all of my
Really?
efforts
For the
on
15-16 budget?
Yes.
Good.
Good.
So.
Okay,
Let's keep our string
any questions on the finance budget?
Okay.
Well, we did have membership. We had membership for a long time.
I didn't even know we had
I had
membership.
kept the membership.
She never attended any of that.
She didn't attend. I had kept
We
the membership.
needed to have membership in GFOA in order
To get the
to get the certificate from
Is
CAFR.
that right?
That's why we did it.
Yeah.
Mhm. So we are continuing
Right.
with that as well. So that
Okay.
those numbers are in the budget.
Did we didn't submit last year's budget, did we?
Well, I have a January 31st deadline, so I've been concentrating all of my
Really?
efforts
For the
on
15-16 budget?
Yes.
Good.
Good.
So
Okay,
our string
anybody,
off.
any questions on the finance budget?
No.
Okay. All right, then we'll move along to debt service, which is pretty cut and dry, and contingency. Let's start with debt service, I guess.
the debt service reflects the changes that we made due to refunding back in August 15, and the last, or the fourth bond for Guilford High School. So you'll see in both the principal and interest budgets, changes and adjustments to those numbers to reflect the updated payments. So we are, on the interest side, once again, anticipating using some of the premium from our refunding to offset those costs. Between the two budgets, it's about a $422 increase, $1,000 increase, and which through our negotiations, through discussions of the budget, we can make adjustments to the amount of refunding up or down that we use. Could change. It's the only thing that could change the numbers.
It's the only variable.
Correct. Otherwise, all the expenses are set in place.
Right.
It's just that refunding number that we could adjust. I believe we're trying to mitigate those increases
Right.
for that.
And
You have a couple scenarios you could line up for us?
Sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you meant refunding in March of 2016. Because that's when we did the refunding.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. And then the bond issue was August
August.
3rd of 2016. Yeah.
I wasn't here for any of it. So.
No, I know, that's why, yeah.
I'm trying to remember off the top of my head.
No, I
here
don't
today.
blame you. No, I just wanted
Sorry about that. I've been working on the audit.
people, sometimes they get the dates mixed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you could give us some scenarios on
Sure.
refunding, various levels, and obviously the impact of the total.
Okay,
total cost.
I don't think there's much discussion right now on the debt service.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, other than the fact that we're looking at the 423,000, which is probably gonna be in the neighborhood of 18% increase in the debt service line combined.
Correct.
Somewhere
And
around
that-
there.
and we put these numbers in the budget because it was kind of the projections that were given last
Yeah,
year.
right.
Because of some of the change, last year's projections showed about a $400,000 increase for this particular year.
Yeah.
But with all the changes that were made, it came out to be about 422. So that's why I chose to put
Pretty
that,
close.
in the budget for
Which
a
is
starting point.
much smaller spike than we had last year,
Right.
which was 1.7 million.
Yeah, that was closer to 1.9, wasn't it?
Well, then we reduced
Oh, we
it
reduced
at
it
the
to
third,
the-
the
yeah.
third referendum.
That's right.
Okay, contingency, not much to say on
Yeah,
that.
contingency, we put in more as a
100%
holder
increase.
play, more of a
100%.
holder, the $175,000 that we've had other years. In the current budget, it was taken out.
Which we cut completely.
Yes.
Completely last year, yeah.
So we have put that in. Again, another area that
Good
we
place to go
can discuss as we move forward.
Okay. Thank you.
Don't go anywhere.
No, she's not going anyplace. All right, next department will be Economic Development. We have Brian McClone, our Economic Development Coordinator. It's still morning, so good morning, Brian.
Good morning.
Morning, Brian.
If I can just make a couple of comments before we jump to the budget sheet itself. And some of these things you may well be aware of. There's been a lot of activity around town continuing. I'm happy to report. I guess if you look at the highlights and the big things that have happened over the last year and will continue forward, of course, Guilford Commons had a big positive impact last year into our grand list, and we'll probably see some strengthening. Of course, we haven't seen the 2016 numbers yet, but 3 new stores were added there, so it'll be more personal property tax. Still looking ahead, there's empty spaces, there's room for a restaurant, so we're hoping to see that. We're in communication with them, but frankly, there's nothing confirmed yet with us for that. 66 High Street, the main building, out of the 15 units in the main building, there's 3 still under construction, but 12 have been finished, and 8 of those are on deposit or sold. I think 4 families have moved in so far out of those. And the second building, the new building, the Whitfield, is under construction. If you go by there, you'll see it. A lot of work, and he expects to have that finished by mid-year of 2017. 2 units are on deposit there out of the 13. And as far as the what I call the second and third new buildings, he's waiting to see a little bit of what happens with the balance of the new building, but the foundations are in and he can move quickly as needed. Can't help but drive by the old Funicellos and see Patriot Medical Center, well under construction. The landlords have been, I say, closed-mouthed about who the tenants are, but the good news is they appear to be fully leased out. And not only the first building that's under construction, a mating building will be started soon, the foundation is in. And in fact, in the last couple of weeks, they've approached us about adding a third building to the back of the site. That again, they've indicated they have it won't be as big, it'll be 16,000 feet compared to the front 2 buildings that are 20,000. And up the road, the former Manic site, U-Haul is still continuing to work with us. And we're working with them. They're going to expand their operations there and build a second building that they hope to break ground in the coming months, in the spring, if the weather continues to hold well. With that, the couple other highlights, smaller projects with Divine Bistro opened in the kind of middle, Carson's and Distinctions. The Carson's Whitfield is in the 4th quarter. Distinctions was the 4th quarter. Smaller projects. And then there's a few more underway. The former Village Francais out on the corner of Long Hill and Route 1 is going to be converted to another medical suite. In fact, we were planning and zoning last night, and a plastic surgeon group that's in New Haven is looking to move into that site in the coming months. Anna's Temptations is under renovation to become an Indian restaurant. And the Broadway Mason site out on the west end of town, the Shoreline Real Estate Association that's currently headquartered in North Haven, is looking to buy that property, convert it, and move their operations here. The Montana Farmhouse next to it, the old Montana Farmhouse, the property's been acquired, and we're working with a developer to put a 10-unit apartment complex in there. And we're further along, Guilford Village West, across from the Guilford Commons. A couple developers are working there with Russ Waldo. In fact, we're meeting this afternoon with them on just revising, but that project could very well get started yet in the latter part of 17. So just, I think, some real positive activities that are continuing to happen in the town, and I'm optimistic. We're filling some spaces and redeveloping some underutilized and or dilapidated spaces, so I think the outlook is very favorable.
Great.
So with that, let's take a look at the budget sheet itself. There's not a lot of line items to look at, but you look at the total increase. The first reaction might be it's a big increase. I'll get to that. Of course, the biggest thing is I'm asking to reinstate the Rex development dues. We were able. I looked a little closer at our board and secretary position. We changed people there. We've got somebody that's a little more efficient. And then we've also done some things in our reporting. While it's a relatively minor amount, and I mean it's 30% of what that budget was, but real dollars are not huge. And then I also took a look at the tourism line from what we've been utilizing and took $1,000 out of that as well to try to help offset the increase request for the Rex development dues. From my perspective on Rex, a couple things. Out of the 15 neighboring towns, while Orange isn't a member on the far end, but if I look at our partners here or our neighboring communities in Madison, Branford, and North Branford, they all participate and support, and we're the only town on the shoreline that has chosen not to do that. You know, they do a lot of things for us that maybe I don't promote well enough, but for example, they went to the International Council of Shopping Centers trade show in New York. This is at the Javits Center. I mean, it's one of the largest for the retailing community. I mean, DDR goes to this as well, but Rex went representing all of our properties. And when you go through here, I mean, they listed, and I gave them information. I mean, Guilford Commons happens to be the first business they're highlighting, saying there's available space. So they're reaching out. This was a two-day conference. They take care of the booth and all of that, work it for us. We just give them some input. It's one example.
Why were we in that if we weren't part of the group last year? Good faith.
They still will work with us without paying the dues. They have worked with us. So I do. It's a, you know, they're trying in good faith to get us back in, so they haven't started isolating us or taking us out. Another thing that they developed is a relocation guide. This is provided to, they generate about 60,000 of these. They distribute these through New Haven Living, but more importantly, they go to the employers and real estate offices and get them out there. Ironically, I have a neighbor who was recruited from California for Alexion. He told me he found out about the shoreline through the package that Alexion gave them that included this. Maybe we would have found him another way, but he was one that did point out that, believe it or not, he reacted to that. And then, you know, you get into their role at the state with us from a business development standpoint, work going on legislation, grants, brownfields. You know, they do a lot of things for us in that regard. And then it comes to tourism. Now, this is another one that we have been included in. This visitor's guide, they produce 80,000 copies of the visitor guide. 20,000 end up, well, they get to all of the neighboring hotels and attractions and offices around the Northeast, our area, our region. And then another 20,000 copies get distributed to train stations and the rest stops along the highway. And I mean, if you went through here, you'd see loads and loads of Guilford businesses, attractions, restaurants, and so on. So, I mean, I think they're doing a lot of things with us. They did it last year without having us paying the dues. But I guess I'm looking at what's fair as well when our neighboring towns are all supporting it with the dues. And maybe next year, if we choose not to, then maybe we won't be able to get as visible in there. So the bottom line, if you look at the budget, yes, it does show, with that included, a 17% increase. But as I said, I tried to shave a couple areas where I could to try to help offset the increase in the dues.
Okay. Questions?
Brian, I know you're very fair in your write-up here and say you can't actually detail the impact in terms of number of tourists or et cetera, but in your perspective is that this is driving value to the community.
Yes,
for Rex,
I do.
right?
I do.
Does Rex do anything relative to regional grant opportunities, et cetera, that kind of thing?
I mean, they manage the brownfield funds request. Now, I mean, we don't have, as Guilford, haven't had a lot of brownfield issues to worry about that. I've gone to them for help. Right. I mean, way back a few years ago when we wrote the original grant on the parking lot, I went to them for advice and you know how we filled it out, and I filled out the forms. Of course, that sat idle for a couple of years and then just got resurrected, but they didn't actually have the money for that. No.
All right.
You know, Brian, been sitting in COG meetings for just about 8 years now. And for a number of those years, we weren't members of Rex. And then I was convinced, mainly by you, and pressure, I guess, put on by some of my colleagues at COG, that Guilford should pay its share and become part of Rex. And I had to convince my fellow members of the Board of Selectmen that, yeah, okay, maybe it's time we join Rex. So we paid our dues for a couple of years. And I appreciate all that you have shown us this morning, where we're listed in these publications, or Guilford is highlighted in some of these publications. But every time, which is our monthly meetings, I go to Rex, I go to the COG, and I hear their executive director or one of her representatives make a report to the board. I don't get a warm over feeling about it, because everything is geared to New Haven or the surrounding towns. And what I mean by surrounding towns, I mean the border towns of New Haven. And I just, I don't see where we're getting the benefit of paying almost $7,000 a year to belong to Rex. And, you know, I think I've grown up a little bit in this job, that I can take the heat now from my colleagues on the board of COG. So I'm still
on the fence
about it, because you know, we paid when we were part of Rex. I say we because we paid our dues for Rex to go over to Germany to try to coax some of the concerns in Europe to come here. But never once did they showcase Guilford.
I provided them a listing of all of the properties we had available to either land that could be built on, and or offices that were approved to be built. So we were included in the overall portfolio of information.
But we were included in the information, but I didn't see them showcase Guilford, to my satisfaction. Maybe I have a different level.
But the key is, do they get any of those companies to come here?
They've got 2 that have shown interest right now that they're, and I'm saying they're not
Interest,
necessarily
okay,
talking to
but-
Guilford.
They're not talking to
They
Guilford?
have, well, that's true, Joe. I mean, there's certain limitations that Guilford has for a manufacturing company to come here, whether it's water everywhere, sewers everywhere, gas everywhere. I mean, that we have limitations from a manufacturing perspective. We're much more suited for office development, retail development. So in the particular focus of that Germany show, it was probably more manufacturing type company.
Even if, but what I'm hearing is they're not even necessarily coming here. So the thing would, even if they came to New Haven, the people could ultimately live in Guilford, because I mean, we see that with, you know, which benefits our community anyway. But so the question is, by us not belonging to Rex for a year, what do we feel we lost? I mean, I think that you have to measure it. There has to be some metric. So what I'm hearing from you, Joe, is you're not indicating that you feel like we lost out on anything per se, and not for nothing. If they're going to come to New Haven, don't take this the wrong way, anyway, to get business, they're going to look at Guilford regardless for living, because that's what's going to happen. So you're answering kind of the, if they're going to look to attract businesses, it's not going to be a.
I mean, like in the case of even the Germany show, okay, they've got two people that are interested. I mean, to think you're going to go over there and hit a home run is unrealistic. Look at Guilford Commons. It took us 8 years to get developed. So, I mean, a lot of times seeds have to be planted before, you know, I mean, one of the things they do is they go to the national bus tours. We got 3 bus tours last year that, I mean, we think, it's hard to pinpoint, because even the bus tours, you look at them, because we've approached them, they're planning a year or 2 out, you know, because they have kind of their next year already budgeted, planned where they're going. But, you know, we picked up now. They were, you know, 50-seater little bus tours, came in, had lunch, did a quick tour, and they were out of here. But, and honestly, did those bus tours find it because of the leads from the Rex attending the show? I can't say with certainty, just because of the lead times that are associated with scheduling those kinds of things. And Cindy, to your point, I mean, they didn't cut us out of anything this past year. Will they become more of an adversary or not consider us at all? And I guess I'm saying somewhat from my perspective, a sense of fairness of all the other membering communities and not doing it. I mean, I think they have some benefit that's happening, and they're reaching areas that we couldn't reach on our own.
No, I understand that.
So, and tourism is hard to measure. I mean, are we getting more tourists into town because of these things? But you have to talk to the businesses in general about the health of their businesses, and do they feel busier? Is it tourists? Is it just our own people coming knocking on the doors?
Yeah, but if they're targeting, excuse me, if Rex is targeting manufacturing, and we're not structured in this town to handle manufacturing, then why should we be part of it?
Right, because we're going to get the indirect benefit of it, regardless.
It looks like, from what you said at the beginning, which was excellent presentation, is that we have a growing community of health services in this town. We're doing that on our own. You're doing it. So that's why I take pause when I have to pay $7,000 to hear how great they're doing for the other, Rex is doing for the other communities. No, maybe I haven't.
To Brian's point of paying our
But
fair
it's up to this board, it's not my decision, but it's worth the discussion.
To Brian's point of paying our fair share compared to other communities and everything, I think we really have to let this budget settle out a little bit and see where we stand. To quote a previous selectman, things are going to come down this year, especially to like to have and must have, and there's no question that there is some benefit to Rex, but it's going to come down to is that something that we would like to have but just can't afford? So we're just going to have to wait and see how things break out, from my perspective.
I'd like to see the tourism budget restored.
The what?
Tourism budget restored.
Tourism.
Well, I think we'd all like to see everything restored, but if we can't afford it.
Instead of 1,000, restore that and defer Rex.
Well, when the state has cut the tourism budget to $1 last year and stuff, the municipalities have to pick up the slack like we always do.
Yeah, let's go back to the title of your department, and your job is Economic Development Coordinator, all right? Sustainable.
/tourism.
It
is.
All right,
/tourism.
and all my friends in the retail business, please don't take offense at that. But that's not the way we're going to significantly change the balance of commercial versus residential real estate taxes. It's the development stuff. It is the office parks. And everybody talks about manufacturing. Why do they talk about manufacturing? Because they've got expensive electronic equipment that is doing the manufacturing stuff now. That's where the tax base changes and changes that paradigm between residential and commercial. So while we're doing tremendous things to support, and obviously several of these are listed in these Rex documents, to support our businesses in town, our restaurants and the tourism stuff, that is great for our businesses. That doesn't necessarily impact taxes, because we don't get, at least not today. They'll be talking about it in Hartford over the next couple of months.
That's not gonna change.
We may have, the municipalities may be able to have sales taxes at some point. We don't have that today. All right, so I would agree in some measure, if Rex is driving any kind of new businesses to relocate to this area, and we're not part of the feature.
Well, let me just clarify one point. The show they went to in Germany was primarily manufacturing companies.
Right.
But when Mount Sinai Biotech Research Company was looking to come to this area, I mean, it ended up in Brantford. So,
Right.
I mean, they're not just looking at manufacturing. They're looking at biotech research or other entrepreneurial startup companies, software companies.
Right.
So it's not just that. So there are some types of businesses that we could possibly, participate in. the short-term problem we have is a lot of these businesses need office space and they need it tomorrow, 90 days. And we're a year away from the few buildings that we've had approved as offices. You know, you still need a year or so to get them up. So now, with that said, okay, the Wire Journal, 8,500 square feet of office space. That's available, but that's the largest piece of office space that we have. Innovation Park, Concept Park, Brockway, across the police department. I mean, these are essentially full. You know, 1,400 square feet. I mean, you know, it's an office. It's not a business. So, and the other thing, Matt, just to clarify, when you look at what's going on, trying to change that mix dramatically isn't going to happen. With 66 High Street, I mean, it's condo. It's going to be listed as residential. If the West End, Guilford Village West, adding to the grand list, but it's really adding to the resi grand list. Now, I mean, while maybe the perception is that I only work on industrial or retail or commercial, I get involved in all of these projects as well, because there's usually issues with zoning, with P&Z, with wetlands, whatever, that I get involved with as well. So, I mean, I that was always the goal, was to try to change that mix dramatically. But, to think about that, Guilford Commons added about $600,000 to the tax roll. Look at the size of that development for $600,000 when we went up last year. What, $2 million in the budget? So, even if we added a Guilford Commons every year, it's still only a third. So
I agree.
Changing that mix from reality. So it's more important, in my opinion, growing the grand list and helping to offset and slow down potential increases in the.
Maybe if I can sum this up, it's I'm not picking on you.
No,
you and I work well together. It goes back to what Charles said. It's a matter of nice to have, would like to have, what we need, and in looking at this budget and looking at what the Hartford's going to do, we just have to be very careful of where we spend our dollars.
Agreed.
And based on that, are there any more questions?
No, I think we've kicked it to that.
I have one.
Yes, Mike.
Is there a possibility of ramping up the fee? For example, maybe in good faith, they've been doing stuff for us, maybe in good faith, we give them
Junior membership.
half the dues and, build it up? Is that a possibility? Rather than giving them the full amount and say, hey, in good faith, we're gonna, we know what we've been doing. Would they be willing to do that? I know some organizations are willing to do that, but.
I would
all or nothing.
assume, no, I've never floated that by them, Mike, but I mean, truthfully, something is better than nothing, and if I went to them in good faith, said, hey, we want to stay in or stay participating, but we can only do this, and see what they say.
Or have him on the board.
True.
I'd like some representation from the smaller communities, primarily from Guilford.
I would just
Bargain
also
for a
just
seat.
add, and I know you can't quantify this, but we are part of a region. Our success, our property values are somewhat dependent on the health of the region. I don't know how you quantify what our contribution ought to be, but this represents a form of contribution to the regional economic status, so I don't think we can completely dismiss it.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
All right, thank you.
Good job. Last but not least, golf course, Teddy.
What did you say one time? We need.
You're hoping that we're all worn out now, aren't you?
Chris Hodgson, the golf chairman, basically had a meeting with a client today, so he said he wasn't able to come.
Oh, he's got to get his priorities in order.
Yeah. And, Joe moved to Florida, so we won't be seeing Joe anymore.
That's right.
Unless we go down to Florida.
All right, basically an overview of the golf course, roughly before we get into the budget. Basically around $10,000 from the last fiscal year, basically due to online specials, getting the ladies league up and going, working with Golf Now with a website, also working with Groupon on a website. A little bit of an increase in the membership for the 2016 season. Great weather, as you all know. We had a hot, dry summer, and no construction projects going on, which helps. You know what I mean? That was kind of briefly, how the season went. Budget-wise, what I'm proposing to you guys is a $9,000 increase. Basically, the golf course commission would like to bring back a pro for the golf course. They think the pro is going to market the golf course a lot better for the community, get people involved, get businesses, hopefully start some golf leagues, set a junior program. What we lost years ago was a junior program here at Guilford Lakes. Getting the kids involved in the community is great. Setting up lessons for anybody that walks in the door, which we presently don't have. We have a ladies league that started this year of 25 ladies, and hopefully increase that, get more ladies involved, get maybe a retirement league basically going, and also having a stock pro shop basically is what we're looking to do in the 2017 season.
So Teddy, for this pro, I had discussions with Chris, is that his duties, first of all, he'd be an outside contractor, right?
Correct. We're looking at a 7-month.
Okay. Now, his
Basically.
duties would be, he would man the pro shop certain hours of the day.
Yes.
Okay, and when he wasn't, then he would book time off, and at that point, he would be available to give lessons.
Yes.
And the lessons would be his own revenue.
Correct.
Correct?
It'd be added to his
All right, now, when he
salary.
was manning the pro shop, we wouldn't have to hire a clerk.
Correct. Basically, we're reducing the budget by $8,000
Okay.
by hiring a pro.
Okay, and then as far as the inventory and the stock in the pro shop, I understand that would be all his.
Correct. We're
So
gonna
he'd
have
take
him-
all the risk.
Right.
And he would get all the revenue from the sale of the inventory there.
Correct.
Okay, just like Bill Fitzhenry did.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so you're reducing at least one employee.
Yes, we're reducing it, almost, our clubhouse salary, by half by bringing in a pro, because he's gonna take over that time in the pro shop. But,
Okay. And you're also,
reducing our concession supply because we're gonna have him actually, manage the pro shop.
okay. And then you're also providing a service for the golfers in the way of lessons, which he'll be, that's his business.
Yes.
And then he's gonna be responsible for all the marketing and setting up.
Yeah, we'd like to get him out into the community a little bit more and talk to the people in businesses and hopefully set up some golf leagues with some companies in town.
Okay.
I mean, that's a way of generating some revenue.
I have a couple of quick questions. The
Yep.
clubhouse attendant at 39 weeks, is it realistic to, is the clubhouse open 39 weeks out of the year? That seems quite high to me.
Yeah, it's basically, we opened up early March this past season and we closed December 1st.
People are actually going to the course?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. And then the next question, the golf course superintendent at the salary of $75,000, it's along the same lines. To me, what does the superintendent do in the off-season, I guess?
What am I doing presently?
Oh, is this you? I'm sorry,
Yeah,
that's
me.
you. I'm sorry. You have a good jo- I think you have- Yeah, you have a great job.
It's one of the questions I get asked a lot.
What do you do in the off-season?
Basically, we're working on equipment. I do some tree work at the golf course. We do some brush work. We put the budget together. Right now, we just sent out the applications for all the memberships, so they're all starting to come in. The mailing just went out to the community, the 125 members that we have. you get to a lot of stuff that you don't get to during the season.
No, with all due respect, it seems high to me. That number, in addition, as do the clubhouse attendant numbers, just for given the history of the course. Another question: number of rounds played. So I know you're talking about having the pro come in. Presumably, lessons are going to, perhaps depending on the type of lesson, have to be on a time when the course is down.
Yeah.
My perception, perhaps incorrectly, is that the course gets a fairly full amount of play in the summer months. Is that fair or not really fair?
Yeah, June, July, August are your three prime
So
months.
along the same, so I guess where I'm going with this is, in looking at the numbers which we get monthly,
Yeah.
I don't really know that I see, and again, I could be completely wrong, a huge opportunity to increase the total revenue from a greens fee perspective than we currently have, short of increasing the rates.
All right, well, by getting the kids program on board, you know what I mean, you also get the families. You know what I mean, so then you get the fathers bringing the parents back out, and you're going to get them bringing in the rest of the family. So that's kind of where the golf course commission sees that. Where
I don't think that's his question.
But no, that's I appreciate that, and I like that concept.
Right.
But my part of the concern I have, or not concern, is again, getting the families and the kids out on the course it'd be super, but if the course is full, then by definition you're taking away, you're bringing in revenue, but you're going to have to close the course down at those times to those people that were providing you with revenue before, unless you're going to take it out of your annual membership people, so they're just going to have reduced opportunities to use the course. So you're collecting the same amount of money from your annual dues payers, but your marginal people are going to not be able to play at the time, so you can't double count the revenue, is my point.
Right.
But wait, I have a question. And I don't play golf, so and I drive by there all the time. It's in my neighborhood. It doesn't seem to me, even in the summer months, that the course is packed all the time. Correct? I mean, it's not
there's definitely room.
That's my point.
There's
So
room.
back to you, Ken. There's a lot of opportunity, particularly during the day in the summer months. People are working. That's when you get all the kids there. That's the times to use the course. The senior program, taking lessons. That's from speaking to some of the commissioners. Yes, after 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, you'll have more people on the course during the week, and on Saturdays, of course, and Sundays. But during the week, during the day, there's a huge missed opportunity to increase some serious revenue, right?
Yeah, when Bill Fitzhenry, who was the former pro, when he was there, I don't know how many years he was there, but
2008 he left.
Yeah, he was there for a number of years. During the summer, you remember, Matt, he ran these programs. It started around 10:30. You'd see the vans pull up into the parking lot, and all the doors will open. These kids come flying out of vans with these little golf bags, and it'd be great. And Bill would get them all organized, and Bill was kind of a big guy, and you'd see him walk out to one of the fairways, and they'd follow him like the Pied Piper. And this would go on for a couple hours during the day, and particularly in the morning. And he'd run that all summer for the juniors. And Teddy's right. What would happen is the kids would get hooked on golf. And then they would talk to their parents, and before you know it, they'd come back during the weekend and start playing the game with their fathers and mothers. And the course was doing fairly good back then, because at that time, and Matt and I think Ken would remember this, the course was paying half of the debt service, and probably showing the same results. That's why I'm saying it was doing good. And now they're not paying any of the debt service. Well, the debt service is gone, and still showing the same loss without like paying another $250,000. I think was debt service at the time. So and to answer your other question, is that I just got an application. I think you guys raised the fees.
$10 across the board just for membership fees.
Yeah, and I think they raised the annual fee too on that too.
So so the 260,000 total budget. Yeah. Your revenue was roughly 160-ish. Does that sound about right? Last year,
180.
180. And so the course has historically lost about 80,000. We transfer money into it every year, and it's lost roughly $80,000 every year. So for that not to happen here, and that's, it will clearly be a benchmark that some people will look at next year at this time relative to the 260, what's your run rate. So if you can come out with something that's better than the $80,000 a year, then I think that it's overwhelmingly successful. And it's been scrutinized in the past. It wasn't fair to the golf course because Public Works, for example, we didn't look at the beach program to see how they were doing, or we didn't go through item by item the individual services that we provide to the people of the town, of which this is one. So now you're folded into the whole thing. So, we used to cherry pick it all the time. We won't be able to do it as easily going forward. So again, there are a few things that I question, but good luck.
And the other thing too is that you won't be transferring that 30,000.
Correct.
Every year now. Correct. So.
The operating subsidy.
Yeah.
Just explain to me, if you would, again, how the pro gets paid, and is it accounted for here? I mean, he's a pure...
Basically, we had a contract with Bill Fitzhenry years ago, so we're basically...
So it's that 25,000.
That's the 25,000.
And then he makes money on selling
he's
equipment.
He's going to selling on
and
equipment.
Lessons.
And lessons.
Lessons
So
and
those,
pro shop.
how it's going to offset his salary.
And so minus, from the 25,000, you're saving essentially that one clubhouse attendant, $9,400.
Correct.
Being eliminated.
Correct.
So it's a net increase of
Right.
14,000.
Plus, you're getting a more
15,000.
professional place as you walk into the door. You know what I mean?
The goal would be
Depending on the
to
way they
increase
look at it.
revenue based upon his
No,
presence.
that
That's
part
the
I
thought
understood.
process.
Is he going to pay for any improvements inside, or is that a separate item? To the extent he wants to improve the
It'll be
the
in
interior?
their capital plan. Not on this sheet here. I have to look at it.
There was no capital, well, there was 8,500 for equipment.
Equipment, yeah, the mower, I think
For
you
a
wanted.
mower.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Nope, move to adjourn.
Please.
Some of us work, I gotta get back to the office.
Oh, we're not working?
My phone's blowing up.
We're not working?
That was prompt.
Okay, Teddy, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And nice to meet
before-
you.
Nice to meet you.
Get that course ready.
Either.
Trace, don't go. Hey. Okay. Before we adjourn, we're gonna, get Tracy, get back here. We're gonna put the,
Commission or something.
this
Yeah,
budget,
no, no,
as it stands now, not in detail, on the website. And then, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, we could link these tapes to GCTV from the website so people can view them from our website. Put a link directly to GCTV so they can view the last 2 days of these hearings. I want to thank the Board of Finance for their participation. And Board of Selectmen, we have to arrange to meet next week. According to the schedule here, we can do that off camera and set our meeting dates. I think we have the next meeting. Carl, looks like January 24th on Tuesday. Okay, I gotta set up the time, probably about 9 o'clock. That's okay.
I gotta be in court, so
Okay.
unless you start at 8:30, I could be here at least.
I got a
5
meeting
minutes.
with the legislators at 8, so I don't know if I can do that. Okay, we can talk off camera. I need a motion to adjourn? So moved. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Thank you all.
You get the eye? We don't vote on it.
Check my schedule.
Unless you guys did the afternoon.